Hello, welcome to the Absolute Football Podcast, and we have a very special, an end of season special on Rochdale today. This is our new series. This is something new for the channel. End of the season, we're just going to do a few of these sort of club-specific reviews, and we got some of the cast of the podcast and some guests as well, hopefully coming on to talk about this. But where do we start? We had to start with the biggest club, the biggest host that we have, the super duper Charlotte. Welcome to the Rochdale season review.
Oh, honestly, I'm so excited for this one because I feel like I've been trying to do a season review all through my Absolutely Lower League show. But obviously, as you all know, it gets to National League and I have like a few sentences to say about Dale. I have to wait all that time. So I'm so excited for this one. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. It will be good for you because, say, if you haven't watched our Absolutely Lower League show before, Charlotte has to cover all of the divisions: Championship, League One, League Two, and National League. And it doesn't leave a lot of time when you have 90 plus teams to talk about. So then you get to Rochdale, and sometimes you get more time than others. But tonight, it's all about Rochdale. There'll be no mention of other teams unless you're playing them or they've stolen your loan players. Maybe they
and we didn't get relegated this season either, so that's a plus.
It's a positive. It's a positive video. Absolutely. So we'll get in. This is the new format. So we've got a few videos and stuff as we kick off. So first of all, let's just introduce to Rochdale's season 23-24. Rochdale finished the 2022-23 season with the heartbreak of losing their Football League status, finishing in 24th and bottom of League Two. It ended their 102-year stay as a Football League club and saw them drop into the Vanarama National League. This followed multiple seasons of decline after the relegation from League One in 2020-21, with managers Brian Barry Murphy, Robbie Stockdale and Jim Bentley all leaving the club. Former player Jimmy McNulty took charge of Rochdale in March, amid turbulent times also off the pitch, with financial difficulties and threat to the club's survival. For the 2023-24 season, the National League offered a brand new division and a challenge for the club. Among many clubs Dale were facing for the first time. The oddsmakers placed Rochdale's chances high at the start of the season, but many fans were more cautious and realistic on their season prospects. So there we go, new season for Rochdale back in the National League chart. I mean, what were your hopes? Obviously, the season before didn't end so great going into a new league. What did you think going into the new season as a Rochdale fan?
Yeah, so it was always obviously going to be different because us Rochdale fans have never known for National League. So it was always going to be different. Didn't really know what to expect because there's a lot of people who do say the quality in National League has also gone up very high since recent times. So there's a lot of quality in there. Obviously, we will get onto it after, but we had things going on off the pitch. So it was one of them where even though it was like, oh my God, we have lost our EFL status now, what do we do? It is kind of a fresh start and exciting times. And I think we had to maybe go down and rebuild to get ourselves back up again. But yeah, National League as a whole this season, I've been really impressed with, to be fair. We're actually winning games in that league as well, which is always a good thing. We're actually winning games. But yeah, it was one of them. Last season, we didn't know what to expect. As I mentioned, we will get onto it later about the issues that we've had off the pitch as well. But if a lot of fans at the start of the season said if we secured status in the National League, didn't get relegated, we'd be more than happy with that. So yeah, it was kind of one of them seasons, don't get relegated, and we're happy.
Happy to progress. I mean, so going down, the media seemed to be pushing you quite high, didn't they, in the preseason prediction? I know you always kind of had more of a level head on where sort of Rochdale would sort of finish, but was that general amongst the fan base? Generally, the fans thought this is a season of solidarity and we need to just sort of get our feet underneath us again.
Yeah, it was really funny because a lot of Rochdale fans, to be fair, at the start of the season were a lot like me. And it was like, right, well, we've had some awful recent seasons. Obviously, Jim McNulty got appointed a job. It was his first proper season as full-time manager. Obviously, he's been interim before that a couple of times and before we got a manager in. So it was always like, yeah, we need to kind of stable ourselves. National League is completely different to the Football League. We need to kind of find our feet in there. it was a lot of new players as well, to be fair. We did have a lot of new players and brought in a lot of players obviously left who we had last season as well. So it was kind of like a fresh start, kind of stable ourselves in National League. As I mentioned, we were all happy without getting relegated. That was one thing we didn't want, because we've seen it before. Teams obviously fall down to National League, then they fall down again. The likes of obviously Stockport as well, which was sad to see. So we didn't want that to happen to us. From the media side of it, and a lot of people I spoke to on Twitter as well, I think they automatically think because you've been relegated from the EFL, you're the big boys, you've got all this money. And it was never the case with us. We just simply wasn't good enough. We've never had a lot of money behind us, like the likes of Wrexham, Chesterfield, Notts counties, even Stockport now to a degree, who have been there. We've never had that financial backing. So I was a bit confused with everyone, thinking, where have we got our money from? Where have we come from? Because we've always thrived off our youth team and kind of getting players from non-league and kind of building them on, or getting your free agents and doing the same. So I was a bit confused by that. And I had many an argument as well on Twitter with people saying, Rochdale, they think they're the big big boys, going to go straight back up again. And not just me, but every Rochdale fan, I think, in our fan base were like, where have you got this attitude from? Where have you got this mentality from? Because that is not us. Not us at all.
That's not the case. And so, as you said, there's been some strong sides in that National League over the last couple of years. Big money. Chesterfield has proved this season they sort of walked it. At Wrexham, Notts County the year before, absolutely sort of stumped it through. So, I mean, yeah, main for you, playing a number of teams probably you haven't played before, / some maybe you haven't seen for a little while. So, yeah, where people sometimes get their ideas from. I think this is it. People have their idea of a club from afar, and maybe a club from something they remember 5-10 years ago, and imagine it's still the same thing. So I imagine that's where a lot of it's probably coming from.
Yeah, it's like with us as well, to a degree. I know we kind of, under Keith Hill, we were punching above our weight. We are kind of have always been a League Two level club, and everyone used to laugh at us and call it the Rochdale division because we'd never been promoted out of it. We were there for so many years, but we obviously achieved a lot under Keith Hill a few seasons ago. We got to League One and we were punching above our weight and stuff. But the money that obviously came through that was due to like selling on academy players, through selling on players for a profit. It was always cup runs. They was a massive help to us. So it was never the sort of like, we've got this financial backing against us, we're going to buy the league kind of thing. So that's why I was a bit confused about people's opinions. But I guess the media as well kind of portray something, don't they? It's like Hartlepool. They said a lot about Hartlepool as well. But we're in quite similar situations at the minute through ownership. So they were never, I don't think, going to punch like your Chesterfields and stuff either because of the struggles.
Yeah, so the media do. They cling on to something, and that becomes the narrative. And so the fans excited for a new season even after what happened last season. And the way to start a new season, and always the excitement of a new season that I really like, are the new shirts. Yeah. The new shirts. There we go. So I just there we go. The home and away shirt. And did Rochdale do last season like they're doing this season with the voting for the home shirt on the website? Is that an annual thing, or is that a new thing for this season?
In recent times, they have done that. I don't think it's been to the extent it has this season, where obviously there's all these different ones, but we have kind of had so many choices to pick from, and then the most popular wins. That's been the last few seasons to try and get the fans on board and their choices. But yeah, I love them shirts. I'm a massive fan of the goalkeeper shirts as well, me, because we do have some really wacky goalkeeper shirts. And I just... this season, I do really like them shirts, because there's been a couple at times where you're like, oh, I'm not too sure about them. But yeah, I really do like them.
Yeah, some good. Which is your favourite, the home or away from this season?
Home.
Home is good.
It's always, for me, I just think that shirt there has been the best one that we've had in a very, very long time. And it just stands out to me that little bit more, and that bit extra special as well, because obviously it's incorporated our kits that we've had in the past few seasons. It's made that shirt, but also it looks so good. And you'll always now represent that really nice shirt with the National League and our first season in National League as well. So yeah, as much as I do love the away one, yellow's my favourite colour. So I was a massive fan of that, and I do like the bright, vibrant colours. But that home shirt, and when you see it in person as well, I've got the old one on, so I'm not actually wearing it tonight. But it's just beautiful, honestly. Such a good shirt.
It is, because I like the details on the stripes. I think that's always, it just adds a bit of uniqueness as well to just a basic shot outlined by the white. Yeah, I think it's a really good effort that season. And so we're going to get into the new season now, and we'll take you up to speed on what happened in the transfer window going into the new season for Rochdale. With relegation to the National League came a large club turnover of players for Jimmy McNulty to contend with. Adi White, Reece Bennett and Tumani Diagoraga left the club at the end of their contract, amongst others. While Ethan Brierley got a big move to Brentford, defender Toby Malarkey exited to join Grimsby Town, and Liam Kelly moved on to Crawley Town. Last season's Player of the Year and HerGameToo advocate Richard O'Donnell was sought after by Blackpool, making the move to the League One side, as Abraham Odo and James Ball remained in League Two with Harrogate and AFC Wimbledon. Coming into the club, Dale saw joining the ranks Harvey Gilmore from Halifax Town, impressive forward Cairo Mitchell from Notts County, defender Carl Ferguson from Harrogate, alongside experienced midfielder Adam Clayton from Bradford, while Chesterfield let Jezerun Uchegbalum join the club. A number of loan deals for Udero, Malden, McDermott and East were also secured to bolster the Rochdale cause for the new division and new challenges ahead. So there we go. Hopefully I haven't butchered too many of those names. we always have fun on this podcast with naming and trying to get that right. So hopefully I haven't done too bad. But out of those, say, in terms of who left the club, Char, last season, who was the one that you missed the most or was most disappointed? I think I know, but...
It sounds mental, but the ones that did leave, I kind of did expect them to leave. Everybody knows how much I love Richard O'Donnell, not just through obviously him, the goalkeeper, and what he did for us. I know obviously people think, but you got relegated, he was in there, but he was one of them guys, his experience, just his leadership in the dressing room as well, on the pitch, and he did obviously keep us in games, as much as obviously we weren't good at all last season. And I will stand up and say that it wasn't good to watch. We had a lot of dire performances. He was our best player, and it shows because he got the award for being player of the season at the end of the season as well. So on the pitch, he was really vital for us, and just your typical experienced goalkeeper. Off the pitch, obviously, as I've mentioned before, he became the first ever HerGameToo professional footballer advocate, which is phenomenal, especially for a team like Rochdale. So it was one of them where I had this idea, and he kind of made that dream a reality, and then other players have came on. So just his presence and him just as a person is just such a nice guy. And I think I would have liked him to stay because obviously it was a very good goalkeeper. Like I mentioned before, his presence around the club, I thought it was vital and something we kind of did need this season, which we have, to be fair, got this season, had under Jim McNulty. But I just think he's at the end of his career now. He deserved that move. Obviously, a higher standard, not just if he came with us, he'd become international league. He's got a League One club and a top League One club as that, because Blackpool are a very big club. They were in the Premier League not that long ago. He's doing his coaching badges as well, which I don't think we could have offered for him to do that with our financial circumstances. And yeah, I just think Richard O'Donnell, even though I do miss him at the club, I think obviously he deserved that. It was a good move all round. The other players, to be fair, it was one of them where they've shown glimpses of quality. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and call them or name shame them or anything, because they did show glimpses of quality, and they were in games good and had good performances. But I think the players that did leave, we did need to kind of get rid of them. They were kind of the ones that I feel didn't really perform that well last season during obviously our relegation. Yeah, ADY was one of them where I thought it would have been a really good squad player, but obviously he's been around a very long time, very injury prone as well. I think he was on top wages out of all the players in the club, so it was just the right thing to do, to be honest, with ADY. Reece Bennett, I think pretty much the same. We've had him before when Keith Hill was manager, and I think from when he's since that move, I can't remember where he went after Dale, but since obviously he moved on from Dale the first time under Keith Hill, I don't think he's really progressed much further. I think injuries have also been something that he's really struggled with as well. And as he's got older, he's just not really been, he's not really played that many games. And I think, like I said, it is just due to injuries. So it was another right move. Ado, I think he's one of them players where he can show glimpses of quality in a game, but he's not really got any end product. He's obviously shown that differently in that Harrogate side, because this season he has scored goals. I think the formation we play and the style of football we play didn't really fit him and the player he is, whereas now at Harrogate he seems to be thriving, which is really good to see. Same with Liam Kelly as well at Crawley, and then obviously James Ball, I'm sure he's at AFC Wimbledon. I don't want to get it wrong, but I'm sure he's at AFC Wimbledon now, yeah. Where I just feel like those type of players, even though they did have some good games for Rochdale and obviously they did score goals, I just don't think they were the type of player that we needed this season.
Sometimes you get that. There was always going to be, I think, as you end that season, you're going to have people out of contract. You're going to have that kind of moving on, as you said, and it probably helped having that refresh, I suppose. The squad as well. You know, Jim McNulty's not too long being in anyway. New league, everything else like that, reset kind of things. And some players want to move on, as you said. If they're kind of on the periphery, there may be one or two of those were the right ones to move. And say Richard O'Donnell, that's a fantastic move he got to Blackpool, to be fair. So that's brilliant for him as well. But more onto the players coming in, or the new Rochdale faces the start of the season. Any standouts? Obviously, I think Cairo Mitchell seemed to be a great pickup for you guys in terms of the goals scored. Anybody else, or was he your standout in terms of the players in? We will get to Cian Hayes separately later on. So don't spoil that bit yet.
Cairo, obviously, it's a bit of a weird one with Cairo, because there's a lot of fans who are a bit unsure about Cairo Mitchell, and they're like, what does he offer us? But honestly, I think to myself, and the stats show it, he's been our top goal scorer this season, and that was including when he was injured as well. I think he was injured for a couple of months. So I think it was it 14 or 15 goals he scored? It was double digits anyway. So that's a fair good record considering he's been injured as well. He is still young as well, Cairo Mitchell. He didn't really get the shot at Notts County. I think it kind of similar to, as I mentioned, with the players that came and left Rochdale last season. I think he just didn't fit that system, and he needed someone there with him. You've got to remember as well with Cairo Mitchell, he scored them goals, and a lot of that has been without Devante Rodney, because obviously Devante Rodney has been out quite a lot this season, and I will get onto that later. And if people do watch Lower League Show, they'll know all about that, because I think I mention it every week. But that's without him. Obviously, Tyree Sinclair wasn't fit throughout the whole season as well. Ian Henderson was coming in and out the squad, and obviously he's older now. So I just think it was quite an inconsistent forward lineup. So considering the changes throughout the different games, I think Cairo Mitchell did do very, very well. We didn't know what to expect with him at first, because Notts County fans basically said what we say about Ado. Like, he shows glimpses of quality, but he's just got no end product. But he's proved that already with Rochdale this season, because he's got them 14 goals. He's obviously got assists as well. So I'm very, very impressed from him. And I feel like in this system that we do play, it is very new and he's only going to get better. And obviously, the more he plays with certain players, it will get better as well. So, yeah, I'm happy with Cairo Mitchell. But I think the main one for me has got to be Harvey Gilmore. He's like the unsung hero at Rochdale. Him in that midfield, he has just been absolute quality. And it's similar to like what United fans used to say about Michael Carrick and Declan Rice, where you don't really remember them being on the pitch, but they're so good at what they do, and they just quietly go along the business, play football, and they're like the core of that squad.
You
And the
notice them
core
when
of
they're
that
not there,
midfield.
don't you? It's when they're not there, is that, oh yeah, that's what they do, yeah.
Yes. And with Harvey Gilmore as well, at our end of season awards evening, he won, I think it was 3 awards. It was like player of the season. I think it was the Dale Trust player of the season. And like, I can't remember the other one, but all 3 of them were like players of the season, which that kind of shows. And I think he missed 2 games. I think I saw a stat that him and Ryan East have played 44 games. No, 46 games each, 44 of them together as obviously the midfield duo. And the 2 that they haven't was when Harvey Gilmore was suspended. And it was just because he got so many yellow cards, and we really did miss him while he was suspended. So, yeah, I think he's got to be the signing of the season for me. But there's been plenty as well. It's like, as I mentioned, Ryan East, we originally got him on loan from Bradford, and then just before Christmas, we got him on a permanent deal, and that was actually funded by the squad builder that obviously Rochdale were doing to raise the funds. So he's another one so similar to Harvey Gilmore, where you don't really notice he's there. He's an unsung hero, but when he's not there, it's like, oh no. And the thing with Ryan East is as well, and I'm really hoping next season, I know obviously this isn't about next season yet, but next season we can kind of get more of a defensive midfielder to fit with Harvey Gilmore. So Ryan East, it allows him to play more attacking, because them games where he was playing more the attacking midfield role, he was scoring goals and he was absolutely thriving. He was creating chances. So he's another one where I just think he's been absolutely brilliant this season. I really do.
It's good that he brought in some players and they become permanent first team members,
Yes.
important first team members as well, not just kind of periphery. So for them to kind of hit the ground running, super important. And we will now go into the season that was early doors, what we saw. And so what I've done here is I've kind of, this is the story of the season. So I'm going to cut it into quarterly chunks and we'll talk about things as it goes through. But so we'll start with the first game you were home to Ebbsfleet. Unfortunately, it's in that nasty red colour that we don't like so much. But how are things? How did you feel after that sort of first week, and then how did that progress after the games after that?
Do you know what? It was always going to happen, because obviously Ebbsfleet came up this season as well, and being a Rochdale fan, and I'm not saying we are snobs by any mean, because we are not entitled to be snobs, because we're Rochdale at the end of the day. But it was one of them reality checks. Like, not that long ago, we were playing Southampton in League One before Southampton's back-to-back promotions. And we've been playing the likes of Portsmouth and all these different teams. And then it was like, Ebbsfleet? Who's Ebbsfleet? We've never heard of them. And it was a very, very, very frustrating game, to be fair, because I felt like, to be fair to Rochdale and Jim McNulty, and it was on TV as well, and we never, ever, ever win on TV. So you just knew it was going to happen. And we've shown some real good glimpses of this football we're trying to play, this modern style football, possession-based and everything. We had so many chances as well, completely dominated. And then obviously they go score a goal and we get beat 1-0. So it's not the best start, obviously, to the season, but it is obviously first game of the season. You've got a whole new bunch of players there who haven't played with each other before. So it was one of them where first game of the season, you just don't really take that into account, do you?
No, you at first had the season, you can kind of give a few more going. Oh, it's early doors.
Yeah.
You're just trying to see some things, I think, in the first couple of weeks of the season, aren't you? Thinking, okay, we're on a bit of a path here, or maybe that's going to work. And or I like that player, but he just looks a little bit kind of raw and
Yes.
needs just a bit more game start of the season. And so as the games went on, he did just say obviously a win at Oxford the second game, and then Woking, but then a sort of a run of a couple of wins and a draw as well. Any other standouts kind of in that list? Because I mean, it took you to 8th after sort of match day 12, which where you were predicting kind of to be not the worst position to be in after that kind of first quarter.
Yeah, Eastleigh was a very good game. I'm not just saying that as well. Eastleigh was a very good game because it was kind of, we played very, very well that game. And it was kind of like, oh, maybe we have got a new style of play football. Maybe we will win games in National League. It was very different to what we've been obviously watching in the EFL. So that was a massive standout game for me. The Bromley game as well, we were our own worst enemies because I think in that game, it was the one where we were 2-0 up. Bromley went down to 10 men. Then we just let them get back into the game. Adam Clayton got sent off as well. And we were our own worst enemies that game. And we could have ended up, obviously, winning that. So that was frustrating. The York game as well is a standout for me. A 3-1 win against Tyree Sinclair. That was when he was going on that role of scoring a lot of goals early on in the season before he got injured and before, obviously, then he couldn't get back into the squad. So that was a massive standout game for me. And he was playing some really, really, really good football as well, Tyrese. Barnet, I think, was one of my favourite games throughout the whole of the season because at that moment in time as well, Barnet were very, very high up there. And we really did run them off the park. We really did. And it wasn't like, oh, it was a fluke or Barnet had a bad day. We played very, very well. So that's a standout one for me. Dorking, Ian Henderson scoring the winner in injury time late on. If anyone's going to score the winner, it's going to be Hendo. It's going to be the goal. Yeah. So that's obviously, I feel like I'm saying all of these ones that we're winning, but
they're all the ones that people like, it's the greens. We're all looking for the greens.
But that was a massive standout one for me. To be fair as well, the Chesterfield at home, I know we got beat 2-1, but that was on telly as well. And I thought we actually, to be fair, stood our ground considering the money they spent, the position they were in. We obviously were struggling with injuries and recruitment at that time as well. We had a very, very small squad. We still do, to be fair, but we were very thin at that point. Chegbullen played as well. He did quite well in that game. And I feel like we were very unlucky in that game and we did give them a game, but obviously they've just got that more quality about them. But yeah, that was another standout one for me.
Yeah, so and Chesterfield, there's no surprise that they ain't going to move from that number 1 position as we go through the season, and they're going to get further away. Sorry, spoilers if you don't know what happened in the National League. But
no.
So yeah, not a bad start. And so we will run through, and we'll obviously we've got to capture the cup. So very quickly we'll sort of pick across there. Obviously, a defeat to Hereford in the FA Cup. Obviously, entering at a very early round, and I suppose from that perspective, maybe it was more the money side of things, perhaps, that were the concerns.
Yeah, it was really sad actually because obviously we obviously had to qualify, and that was another we're National League now. You don't just get to the first round; you have to qualify. Don't get me wrong; it's only for one. Different to all the other clubs below us. They have a really tough run of games, don't they? Before they can actually qualify. Yeah. So it was only the one, but we just looked very lethargic that game. We didn't look like the Rochdale we'd seen in the previous games. If I remember right as well, we had quite a lot of first team squad players injured. And I'm not using that as an excuse because Hereford deserved a win 100%. We just didn't really look on the ball that game, and we just got completely what we deserved. It was sad, obviously, from a Rochdale fan point of view, because we rely on these cup runs massively. And obviously the finances at the time, we needed them finances, but it was just one of them reality check kind of things. But fair play to Hereford and what they've done, obviously, in the National League. North, I think. Are they in North or South?
Hereford, I think, is North, isn't it?
It's North, isn't it? I'm sure it's North.
I'm sure it's North.
Bad at geography.
They'll tell us in the comments if we're wrong, but I think it's North.
Yeah, but they were doing really well in National League as well. The one below us. I don't know if it's North or South. I think it's North, as I mentioned. But at the time, so fair play to them. And as I mentioned, it was just one of them games where we didn't deserve to win. We played very good possession-based football, but we didn't really have many chances, and then they took their chance as well. So fair play to them. Cannot sit here and complain because we just didn't deserve it.
It's the day, and it's cup football sometimes, isn't it? It's just that one moment, and you can be out. As we said, say monetarily, probably something the club were hoping might have a bit of a run to help. And we'll touch on it quickly because I know it's the topic we've discussed a few times on the pod, and say FA Cup replays obviously have been confirmed next season to be stitched. I mean, what does the FA Cup mean to say? It meant to you anyway in the League Two, but let alone sort of the National League. What does it mean to your club?
I absolutely love the FA Cup, and it was one of them from being a little girl where you just get your chance of playing like teams bigger than you. You get to go to grounds that you'd never go to. I remember one of my first FA Cup memories was actually we played Coventry, and I cannot remember what season it was. Was it early 2000s? It could have been early 2000s, and I had a favourite player called Paul Connor, and anyway, we'd signed Paul Connor, and we played Coventry. It were a couple of leagues, obviously, above us, and we ended up beating them 2-0. Paul Connor obviously scored, and it was like the talk of the TV, like on the FA Cup. They had like a highlight show, didn't they, as well, where everyone used to sit and watch this highlight show and have all the games and stuff and all the highlights from all the FA Cup games that have been on. And everyone were commenting about Paul Connor, like, oh, Paul Connor, he's going to go to a bigger club, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, he actually ended up going to Swansea, and he left, and it was near my birthday he left, which obviously was gutting for me. I was absolutely heartbroken. But that's one. We've obviously beat Leeds in the FA Cup before 2-0. That was when Brian McDermott was their manager. Scott Hogan was our striker at the time, and Ian Henderson the goal. As I mentioned before, he chipped their goalkeeper. We won 2-0. We've obviously played Spurs and got a replay at Wembley. Stephen Davis scoring in injury time was mental. Newcastle as well. So for a fan like me, I just feel like it's memories, and we don't really get the chance to go to all these grounds and have these memories, because there might be one day that Rochdale could get promoted to like higher and higher divisions, but it's not likely. It's a very, very slim chance, unless obviously something very, very brilliant happens. But it's just sad as well, because I feel like with this money, it's not just the experiences for fans as much as they're amazing. It's to keep our club running as well. Like there was certain times where we had a cup run, and then we didn't have to sell that like one of our star players until the next transfer window and things like that, or we could pay like a vital bill, and it's just so sad, because I feel like people don't really see it from that side of it. It's just like, and I get the whole fatigue thing and fixture congestion as well, but they need to remember that clubs like us have fixture congestion, and we don't have the squad depth and the academies that the higher clubs are having. But yeah, it's just a bit frustrating.
It certainly is, and it's. I think they're still finding out the details of who knew, who it was discussed with, whether it was everyone agreed. It's wrong. It's again just money at the top. I support a club near the top of not at the top of the Premier League. I'm telling you these days, but and I don't like it. I hate it. I just don't think it. I'm all for. You need competition up and down the ladder. You need things to pull through. The financial needs to be supporting the clubs in divisions below and supporting the football, because I know there's an awful lot of fans that watch the Premier League and those clubs around the world, but for the local communities of these clubs, it's absolutely massive. They're all part of the heritage, and people have grown up, families have grown up. It means so much. So they need to do more. But as we say, it's another decision made for money. Another decision made for money. We shall move on. We shall move on from that because we've got some more positive. I think to focus on now is that we had the arrival of a certain player on loan, for a period of time. So I think it was November he joined originally, or October, November. Yeah. Tell us about Cian Hayes in that first part of the season, Sian. What he did to the team.
Honestly, and I know if anybody watches the lower league show or if anyone sees my Twitter, I know I go on about him all the time. But the last few seasons with Rochdale in particular have been so dark and we've not really had many positive moments. I'm not going to sit here and say it's all been like really, really bad. There's obviously been games where there's been some positive moments and like highlights. But this lad has been one of the most exciting players I have seen in a Rochdale shirt for a very good number of seasons now. I think the last player we had similar to him and as exciting and creative as him was Nathaniel Mendez-Lang. And that was under Keith Hill. So you think that was a very, very long time ago now. And Cian Hayes is just so good. And just watching him, and I'm not disrespecting any of our other players at all because I absolutely love the squad we've got now and they try so hard. They are good players. But you know when you can sit there and see the quality of one player compared to the others and just his pace, just everything about him, just his game. He's always looking for the pass. He'll take players on. He's just so exciting. And the thing that I love about him the most is I think the last few seasons with him, he's only still very young. I think he's 20, 21. So he's still very young, but I feel like he got established quite early in his career, you know, as the academy player. And there's been a lot of people talking about him from like a younger age. I don't want to say since a young age because he's still only young, don't get me wrong. But I think obviously he's had injuries. I think with Fleetwood, he's been quite in and out. So it's been more enjoyable as a fan to watch him as well. Obviously, he's given us some fantastic moments this season, but just as a fan watching this young player thrive and enjoy every minute of his football is so refreshing to see because you don't see that all the time now in this day and age with football, do you? You can see people having strops. You can see people obviously getting annoyed and things like that or spitting a dummy out. And this young lad is just so happy to be playing football. And when he gets taken off, he doesn't moan. He's straight up. Him and Jim McNulty hug each other. And honestly, it's so refreshing to see someone enjoying the football so much, but it's also refreshing to see, like as a fan, this player and what he has done for us Rochdale fans at this young age because everyone loves him. Like, everyone loves him. He's brought Rochdale fans together because he's that good. Honestly, he's just... I could go on about him. Like, I could do, like, a whole series on Cian Hayes. He's that good, honestly.
A Cian Hayes special is coming up soon. I mean, it's fantastic that he's got such those kind of dynamic, creative skills, as well as you said, kind of having those role model-y elements as well, especially for a young player to have. And so hopefully, the younger Rochdale fans in particular really sort of gravitated towards him this season and say, because... not only is he exciting on the pitch, but he's acting kind of the right way and putting that kind of right foot forward. So, he was a big step into your team. He was. Fortunately, he went back. He did go back, which we will cover a bit later. Cian Hayes did go back for Fleetwood, and there was some worrying times, but it all ended up well in the end. With his.
I'm hoping it goes even better as well. Everything is crossed.
It's just come back. And is getting ready with another song as we speak to bring him back. And so Cian Hayes was in that kind of period up until the sort of halfway point. Rochdale there was still sort of 8th after sort of 23 games you had there. Chesterfield obviously running away with it, but very tight division apart from that. You know, some very strong teams up there. Barnet Bromley remained there most of the season, as did Solihull Moors. So Gateshead and some strong sides in that top half. How did you feel Any sort of stance of a lot of goals that you started to see in that kind of second portion of the season, both sides?
Yeah, I think the thing is with us, and as you can probably see by obviously the results on screen, it wasn't our attacking force what was the problem, because we were creating a lot of goals, we were scoring a lot of goals, but we were really leaking a lot of goals as well. And I think that has been the story of like previous seasons as well. It's just been the case of we concede a lot of goals, and I don't know if it's because obviously we're trying to evolve and play it this certain way at the minute, and obviously the players we've got now are trying to fit this certain system and kind of get used to the way they're playing, but we really did leak a lot of goals. For me, obviously, the Oldham game was a standout. Despite us losing, it was a very, very, very entertaining game. It always seems to be off the pitch anyway. Sometimes for the wrong reasons, but off the pitch, it's always very entertaining. Obviously, we'll get onto it later. The other one weren't as entertaining as this one, but yeah, that was just crazy and mental. And I honestly thought that day we could go on and get the equaliser, but we're just really unlucky. Jimmy Keohan as well, scoring in that game. He's been one of them players that a lot of people kind of forget about, and a lot of people actually don't consider him good enough because he's not one of your top names or anything. But I've always really liked Jimmy Keohan, and I think he's a very good squad player. He'll always give 100%. He's very like consistent. You can rely on him. So it was good to obviously see him on the score sheet. Hartlepool, I thought, was a really good game, and it was one of them where I actually had a pop concert that day. It was that 90s Pop Baby one.
Oh, so yes, I remember it.
I didn't go to Hartlepool, and on the way, I think we were 2-0 up on the way there, and then they pulled it back, Hartlepool, to 2-2. And, oh no, did they pull it back? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure... I don't either way. I was like, right, we're going into here now, and I didn't see the result, and I didn't see the result, and I was like, oh no, and it wasn't until the end of the concert I actually saw the result and we won. But that was a massive game for me and a standout because it was Ryan East, and he actually scored his first goal at Rochdale, and it was a very, very good goal as well. And that kind of started his run, what I've been talking about, of him scoring the goals and obviously playing in that position. So that'll always be a standout one for me. Wealdstone was just so frustrating again, just let ourselves down. Conceding late goals as well, so that was frustrating. Aldershot was a standout as well because Aldershot were really on a good run at that moment in time, and I think they'd beat Stockport and Swindon.
They just had their cup wins, didn't they?
Yeah, and then obviously to pull that off and do that, because Aldershot, I think they just missed out on the playoffs this season, but they have got some really, really good players, especially for attacking force. And I feel like that was one of them games where it was like, oh yeah, we can kind of compete with these teams and compete with the kind of the more entertaining teams in the league. So that was another one. Altrincham, obviously another standout one. I think Ryan E scored in that game, but it was one of them games where Alex Newby plays for Altrincham now, and he was one of my favourite players at Rochdale. He's obviously at Altrincham now, and I thought this has got a 1-0 Alex Newby goal written all over it. Altrincham were obviously thriving at the time. They were doing very well. They've had a brilliant season. They've got some really, really good players as well who I go on about. Regan Linney, Con Clark, Alex Newby as mentioned, some really solid players in that attacking force. So I didn't really know what to expect, but to go out obviously at home and beat them 3-0. Ryan East again. I think Cian Hayes, did Cian Hayes play in that one? I'm pretty sure he did as well. But this game stands out to me as well because there's this one goal, and I think I shared it in our group chat, our football one, and it was Rochdale fans getting really annoyed because it was just passing, build up of this goal. And I can't remember how many passes we did all together before this goal actually happened. And everyone was like, oh, we're getting so annoyed. And it was like, trust the process, because then we went and scored. So that was a
It's like that famous, was it the
result.
Brazil one? The Brazil one
Yes,
from the
I'm
70s
sure it
or
was.
something, where they just, take about 3 minutes and then speed up the play a bit. Yeah, easy stuff.
It was very similar to that. And our social media admin actually clipped it as well, the whole goal. And I think he put something like trust the process. I can't remember, but all the Dale fans at the game were getting so frustrated. And they're like, just shoot. And obviously we're fiddling around with this ball. But Dagenham as well. I thought that was a very good result. Some really good results on that, to be fair. And the ones that we didn't, obviously we lost points on, are the ones where, as I've said, we're our own worst enemy. It's a conceding late goals for us, which is massively a problem, from set pieces as well.
Yeah, which is the killer. Because I mean, say that run there, pretty much Maidenhead downwards there. You've only lost a goal. The games you've lost it by a goal, and as you say, some late goals and some of those draws as well. So, and it put you in 8th at that point. So you're just kind of off the playoff pace, not far away. So in terms of the first half of the season, for first season in the National League, kind of pretty positive, I think. Pretty positive. Again, another slide we'll skip through very quickly because, of course, unfortunately, you weren't in the EFL Cup this year with in the National League, or the whatever they go. Is it the Oggy Pasty Trophy? I started calling it in the in the EFL League, the EFL Trophy. But you were in the FA Trophy, of course, and a heavy defeat to Gateshead. We'll just move on from that, shall we? Anything to say on that one?
To be fair, I've said it so many times. We've really struggled against Gateshead this season. They play some very, very, very good football, and I am a very big fan of the style of football they play. And obviously, losing out on the manager so early in the season. Then I think it's our assistant now what's took over as manager. He's got the full-time role. And just the players and everything, they play some very, very good stuff. And unfortunately, we saw them get kicked out of the playoffs, which I'm really upset about, because they really, really deserve to obviously go and compete, because
to fight for it, yeah.
They really have, because they've been, honestly, and you've got Chesterfield. You can't take anything away from Chesterfield, because what they've done, and they've won it hands down, so easy. But I honestly think one of the next best teams and just style of football and everything about them is Gateshead. They've had a phenomenal season, and they've not really got the resources as well that Chesterfield have had. They've not got the budget behind them. So yeah, massive hats off to them, massive credit to them, because they've been brilliant. And the result just shows it. I can't really say much more than we played bad at the time as well. I think he rested Louis Molden, and he played Brad Kelly, who was our second string goalkeeper. He's obviously ended up with a really, really bad injury, bless him. So he didn't feature in many games this season. And I don't think Cian played either. I don't know if he got injured as well, Cian Hayes, at one point. So I don't know if this was the game. But yeah, we just weren't good enough. We had some first team players obviously playing. We had a lot of the youngsters, but they just completely played us off the park. It really did. But I can't say anything more.
Just one of those days where you just have to go, okay, not our day. Definitely not our day. But then off the back of that, and so halfway through the season, sort of roughly at this stage, you get into January, obviously transfer window, or should we come on to difficulty in terms of, funds, etc. You've had loan players sort of coming in, going back. Obviously, Cian Hayes went back. Louis Molden was another, of course, who left you with a bit of a goalkeeping hole, of course. So we'll move on now to say just a summary video of what happened in the January transfer window for Rochdale. Amongst the backdrop of the financial struggles, Rochdale had to bring in some new players to support their playing squad, particularly with Louis Molden's loan return leaving a big gap in the goalkeeping department. Irish keeper Tiernan Brooks joined from Notts County between the posts on loan till the end of the season. A real positive for Dale was the permanent signing of Ryan East, who had been on loan from Bradford City, with the deal made permanent in December, with the number 4 shirt made his for Rochdale. Another permanent deal was sealed as Kyron Gordon left AFC Fylde at the end of his contract, with the 21-year-old defender taking the number 2 shirt. Loan deals were also sealed for Man United academy pair Sam Mather and Sam Murray, while Dan Sassy was added from Blackpool and goalkeeper Jacob Chapman from Huddersfield Town. But the one that was missing, when it looked like hope was lost of a Cian Hayes return to Scotland, until one man from Sunderland sang a song on a podcast.
I have wrote a nice little song to Lee Johnson from our very own Charlotte Cromartie, right? And it's called Give Us Back Cian Hayes, right? You might know the tune. It's a very famous Christmas song, right? Lee, why did you have to take him away? Don't think I can take the pain. Won't you give us back Cian Hayes? He was a devil on the right wing. To see him go, it really stings. Won't you give us back Cian Hayes? Words can't describe how I really feel. I just want a permanent deal. Won't you give us back Cian Hayes? There's only 2 more to go, right? I hope your next shit's a hair jog and you can't get off the bog. Give us back Cian Hayes. If you don't, then I will be brown, and I hopefully will go down. Won't you give us back Cian Hayes? Lee Johnson, if you're listening, you're probably not, but listen to the people, listen to Rochdale fans, listen to everyone. Give them back Cian Hayes.
There we go. Of course, the one and only, the beautiful voice of Anne making a song to bring back Cian, and it worked, Char. It worked. He came back. He returned.
I know. And who got Lee Johnson the sack? Super Andy Waterson.
Did he ask for it?
I'm joking.
Super around. He did his bits. He did. The song helped, and of course, Cian Hayes. I remember saying we were all sort of buzzing to try and get Cian. I remember the day actually when Cian Hayes came back, and it was announced on Twitter, and I think you were working, weren't you? Because the group chat went a bit crazy, and it was like, "Where's Char? We're all so excited, but where is she?"
He thought I collapsed or something. I didn't even know. I was working, and all this commotion were going off on my phone, and I was like, "What's going on?" Looked, and then all of a sudden, I heard Eminem, because obviously that was the video, and it was "Guess Who's Back Again," and then it was just his little picture, bless him, and honestly. You can tell now by my smile and just everything I've said about Cian Hayes, and it still stands. Like, what a player and what a massive influence he's had on the back end of the season as well. It's just a Cian Hayes that we saw at the start of the season, and I know it's probably impossible, but I would love to sign him. It's one of them where my heart is like, I want to sign Cian Hayes on a permanent deal because he's so good. And I feel like with Rochdale, it could not only just help Rochdale progress, but it could progress himself as a player and maybe get the dream move, obviously, because he's playing a lot of football at Rochdale and that's where he's going to get spotted, obviously, at Dale. But then my head and the logical side of me is like, it doesn't deserve to play at National League because he's such a good player. But as I say, my heart is saying he can progress with us. We can do good things together. Rochdale and Cian Hayes.
The project, trust the process, Cian.
Exactly.
Trust the process. Yeah,
exactly.
I suppose it's always difficult, as you said. You've had a phenomenal loan player, and the fact he came back, he obviously loved the club and wanted to do more. So at least he kind of got him for this season. We'll see what happens in the summer. Who knows? We
need Ant to do another song. Come on, Ant.
It's an album, I think. A Cian Hayes album is what is needed. Podcast album for a permanent deal this summer. We'll get him working on it. We will get him working on it. And so we did move into the next part of the season. So we've got. Now it's starting to get a bit a bit tight. Rochdale dropped down a little bit at that point. Chesterfield had pretty much won the league by this point, surprise. But elsewhere, those playoff places were starting to kind of move away. Rochdale were hitting a bit of a difficult patch of form. How are you feeling about this point? Obviously, other clubs had done some stuff in the window, strengthened their squad quite well. And particularly that kind of middle run of the games, Aldershot through to sort of Solihull Moors was a bit of a sticky patch for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it kind of summed up where we were, because obviously we had that announcement from the chairman as well saying, I know we'll get onto it more later, but about the possible liquidation and we need finances ASAP. So it was kind of like the players were uncertain about whether they were obviously going to get paid and what was going to happen at the club. Would they still have a job? Fans didn't know whether they still have a club, obviously, to watch. So it kind of took its toll on the pitch as well, and rightly so. And it was always going to. The players were giving their all. That's one thing I could not take away from them, despite the results and despite, obviously, the bad run of games, as you can see up there. They did really give their all and they did really try. As I've mentioned as well previously, we did have injuries, like Tyree Sinclair was injured around this point, Cairo Mitchell, Devante Rodney as well. That was a massive, massive loss. So we were really just relying on Ian Henderson, who obviously he is brilliant, Ian Henderson, still at this age, but he's not getting any younger. We can't rely on him all the time, bless him. I don't think Jim McNulty actually said in an interview, he said, I actually apologised to Ian Henderson and said, I'm sorry because I didn't expect for him to have to be playing this much and be relied on. So as you can probably tell by that, we've just really got him. Chegbulham as well, we're playing quite a lot at this point, and the thing is with Chegbulham, he's still only young, to be fair to him, and he's not really played much previously at the clubs he's been at. He's had glimpses, don't get me wrong, but he's not really played much, and he wasn't Cian Hayes at this point. We really did miss Cian. Louis Molden as well. You cannot take away the fact we lost Louis Molden, not just for the goalkeeping point of view, just the way he played football. He really did fit in the system. And he started, obviously, the playoff and his assists as well. He got 5 assists for us for a goalkeeper. That is just mental, isn't it?
That's crazy
That is
stats,
just mental. So obviously, Tiernan Brooks, to be fair to him, a lot of people were very heavily critical on Tiernan Brooks, and I thought it was quite harsh, really. Don't get me wrong. There was now and again, there was goals where you thought he could have done better, but I feel like with Tiernan Brooks, he was still learning. He's not really been playing first team football. He's at Notts County, so he wasn't their first choice keeper. So he's not been really playing first team football. And I feel like a lot of people kind of didn't really take to Tiernan Brooks the same because he wasn't Louis Molden, and Tiernan always had big, obviously, shoes to fill. And I thought he did a job, to be fair to him. It was a whole new system as well, style of football. So, yeah, I thought people were very, very harsh, to be fair, on Tiernan Brooks. And as much as, like I said, now and again, it did make a mistake, but goalkeepers do. And it's goalkeepers, isn't it? Like, they do have a lot of pressure on them. So, yeah, it doesn't look good there. Obviously, we went on a really bad run. And that was when a lot of our fans were kind of questioning Jim McNulty, which I think is, personally, I think it's quite stupid because I've mentioned it before as well. He has had a bad patch, don't get me wrong. Some of the style of play that we are playing isn't attractive at the minute, but we didn't really have the players fit at that time in the right position. So obviously that's another thing we struggled with. And I just feel like it's his first season as manager and his first season playing that style of football. So, and that's with bare minimum budget. Like, we didn't really have much of a budget. So just let him thrive. Let him kind of have his first season, we've done all right, and then kind of kick on hopefully next season where hopefully we'll have the finances against us. But yeah, I can't really say a standout game from that, because AFC Fylde obviously beating them at home was good. The away one, as I've mentioned before, the whole thing with the Chegbullum, I think was a
injury,
disgrace.
yeah, crazy.
That was just a crazy one. But to be fair, I think we did deserve to lose that game, because I remember, I'm pretty sure we had academy players on the bench at that point, because we were just so like down to the bare bones like squad, because they were just either poorly or they were injured, which obviously isn't very good. Kidderminster is a standout, because I remember the Tyree Sinclair goal. That was one of them up for goal of the season, and it was an absolute peach of a goal. It was phenomenal. So that was one that stood out for me. The others, to be fair, I can't really disagree with the loss, because we really did deserve to lose them. Chesterfield is a massive standout, because not only did we get a point there, Devante Rodney got a goal that was one of the first games back for him. Obviously, he struggled with illness, he struggled with injury as well. So that was one of his first goals back and first games back. So that'll be a standout. And what obviously a help he was when he got the chance to obviously kick on and he was playing more minutes. Wheelston, again, that was one game that it was like, yes, we're back kind of thing. Cian Hayes was scoring. I think he got 2 in this game, Cian Hayes. One of them was an absolute peach, and what Cian Hayes does kind of thing. But it was one of them games you kind of needed to win and should have expected to win. And I think down at this point, when we played Wheelston, even though we weren't in the bottom half of the table, I think we were still only so many points off relegation. So it was kind of a must win, because we were getting drawn into it a little bit. So I think that's why our fans were getting frustrated. Ebbsfleet is just annoying. Like, again, getting beat off Ebbsfleet. We did a double.
Just not a fan of it. Just not a fan of it.
I'm not a fan of it.
Not a fan of being beaten by Ebbsfleet. No, there we go.
Not for me.
No, it's not something to look forward to. I think, as you said there, because you're 12th, but it was getting quite backed up, wasn't it, in the bottom half as well? So there was kind of a little bit of looking over your shoulder, and say, as we're going to come on to now, so obviously the serious point of the season, the threat that was kind of looming behind all the stuff going on the field, having an impact, no doubt about it, having an impact on what was going on the pitch. Obviously, Rochdale's liquidation ownership issues. So what we've got here is just a sort of a video to try and sort of highlight what's going on, what's happened if people aren't aware, and then obviously we'll come back and we'll have a little chat about what it meant and what was going on for you at that time. So let's roll the video here. Off the pitch, Rochdale were dealing with extreme financial issues which threatened their entire existence. Fans were concerned that at the end of March the club would be liquidated, and that would be the end of their 117-year football club. Rochdale have been operated under a fan ownership model, one of only 4 or 5 in the country that are run by such a model, with potential investors' interest relying on the fact that to buy a majority stake in the club, individual stakes would have to be purchased, making that complex with existing shareholders, and deterring investors who want to be able to buy a large percentage of the club in a single transaction. Financially, Rochdale were hit hard by the COVID season, as well as the double relegations in quick succession from League 1 and League 2. The estimation is that around 27% of their revenue is coming from fans. Now, the relegation from League 2 meant also the club will no longer receive the approximate £500,000 that EFL clubs receive in the 25-26 season, and they'll only receive 50% of that the following season. But the huge hit financially came from the protection of the club from a hostile takeover attempt in the summer of 2021. The fronting company of Morton House planned to seize control by convincing existing shareholders to sell. They did so without any of the owners' and directors' tests, and ignored the club going directly to the shareholders to overpay and get a deal done. It was deemed a hostile takeover, and it also saw David Bottomley removed as a director for his involvement. They were hit with a 6-point deduction, CEO and individuals from Morton House banned from operating as relevant person at a football club for 2 years, and with estimations that it cost the directors £500,000 that could potentially have been invested into the club, as well as the cost of £500,000 in legal fees. Simon Gage was elected to be on the board as chairman following this, brought his own team onto the board of directors and rebuilding the club following the narrow avoidance of disaster. This hostile takeover attempt had also left the fans nervous with new investment and keen on retaining their fan-owned model, but the problem in March 2024 was grave, as Gage outlined. "It's really big, the danger," said the chairman. "It isn't a basket case of a club and it hasn't got massive debts, but it doesn't have the cash to continue operating. We know that this day has been coming. The end of March, that will be the date of the next payroll requirement. At that point, we won't be able to pay payroll, which will then trigger a whole load of events that will ultimately end up with us going under." But light appeared at the end of the tunnel following multiple meetings with the club and supporters trust to move away from the fan-owned model for survival. The club accepted a new preferred investor at the end of March, with the Ogden family stepping forward. The new potential investors, the Ogden family, made their own statement outlining some of their key principles. "We are a family with strong Rochdale roots. Sir Peter Ogden and Lady Ogden were born in Rochdale. Our charitable trust, the Ogden Trust, which primarily supports the teaching and learning of physics in underrepresented groups, has various ongoing initiatives in Rochdale schools. At this stage, we'd like to set out the broad principles which will underpin our offer. Number 1. Our sole short-term motivation is to ensure that the club survives its current financial crisis and remains a going concern and community asset with the interests of the community at heart. Number 2. In the medium term, our ambition is to assist the club to become financially sustainable regardless of football success. We do not believe there is a silver bullet solution, but we hope our investment will give the club the time and resource needed to properly explore the available options and then execute them as efficiently as possible. Number 3, our offer is not financially motivated. The shares we would acquire will be held in trust for the benefit of the Rochdale AFC Community Trust, and our decisions will be made solely in the best interests of the club and the community. Number 4, we fully support the conclusions of the fan-led review, particularly insofar as they relate to governance and supporter engagement, and our offer will be consistent with their recommendations." Ultimately, it presented Rochdale with a way forward and gave the fans and supporters hope that their club can move forward in a more positive and financially secure way.
So yeah, the stress of the financial situation, the ownership situation, a very worrying time. I remember for all Rochdale fans during that period. Obviously, as said in the video, they're going through that hostile takeover, leading to kind of this point with being fan owned and not being able to kind of financially to keep the wheels running, as it were, looking for an investor. How scary was that period of time, Char, where the whole club is effectively under threat?
Yeah, so it's been a couple of scary seasons, to be honest. And I'm not just talking about the football on the pitch last season, not last season, the season before now. I won't count the National League one, but the season before that, there were some scary moments on that pitch. But yeah, the hostile takeover, like as you mentioned, that was one of the scariest times because we didn't know what were going on. It was just a lot of uncertainty. Obviously, there was people on the board at that point who were selling their shares, like not to EFL rules and regulations. So just by that and stuff, and there was a lot of uncertainty there. I felt like the fans were very much like distant from it. We didn't have a clue what were going on. And to say it was a fan-owned and shareholder-run club, you'd expect we'd like have an inkling and we'd know about it, but it was very it was just very sneaky, all of it, and it just didn't add up. And then obviously the Dale Trust and Dale fans and everything as well obviously caught wind of it, and that was when all that were going on with David Bottomley. We had the meeting and decided to get him off the board, which was 100% the right decision. Obviously, at Morton House at that time, there was a lot of things going on. So when EFL came to wing with this, and obviously there was a lot of investigations going on with the Dale Trust and Dale fans who took it upon themselves to kind of get information behind the people who obviously were considered to have bought these shares, and they did their own like investigations as well, which was obviously absolutely phenomenal. We had help from Charlton, we had help from Swindon, their trusts, a lot of other trusts as well, like Derby's, who obviously they were going through similar circumstances with ownerships at the time, and obviously didn't really know what was going on with their club. So it was kind of a lot of football clubs reunited and united for us and to help us, which is obviously amazing, and I'll forever be grateful for them. As mentioned in the video as well, Simon Gage obviously got elected to go on, and he kind of put his money into it with a group of people he knew and became the board, and it was all their own money, and they did that to save the club. And I just want to say my thanks to him. And a lot of fans might not agree with me on this one. And there has been a lot of people criticize me and criticize other fans for having this opinion. But I feel like he really has done a lot for the club, like, and secure the future of our club. And don't get me wrong, he has not made right decisions necessarily to do with things on the pitch and football side of things, which I think is to do with lack of inexperience, because he was thrown in at the deep end. So I personally think that I will forever be thankful for what he did regarding the hostile takeover and stuff, because he put his own hard-earned money into it. He was kind of very transparent about it all. And I think as a chairman, that's all you can do. And as mentioned in a video as well, with Rochdale in particular, we don't have massive debts at the club like other clubs do. He mentioned in an interview, we are asset rich because we own our stadium. We own like the pubs around the stadium, what are obviously there. We're just cash poor because he's put that much money into fighting the hostile takeover, as our fans have as well, and obviously trying to finance transfer windows and things like that, where we've obviously, it's just got to a point where he just can't put his own money into it. He's tried, but he just physically can't. And I think a lot of our fans at that point wanted it to stay fan-owned, because they always had that thing at the back of the mind, like, what happens if they get the wrong person in? We've seen all these other clubs go under and stuff, and rightly so, because we've not known any different to that. So I kind of see their opinion, especially with the older ones as well, who they've only seen it being fan-owned and shareholders. But I think it was one of them decisions where we had to act upon it, because if we're going to stay fan-owned, we might not survive. And he basically came out and said, I've tried to keep it fan-owned. I cannot physically put any more money into it. Him and Richard Knight, who's obviously another board member, they have just put whatever money they had, and they can't physically put any more in. They've tried and they can't do it, which it is what it is, isn't it? They've not treated us wrongly. They've not done anything badly by the club. They've just basically not got any money anymore, and they've been as transparent about it as possible. So obviously that happened, and then we had to have a meeting about changing the structure of the ownership, because being fan-owned, it does sound good with the aspect that nobody could obviously come in and do this and that to your club and kind of change things and get you in debt and all this. So that side is very promising, but we cannot sustain being fan-owned because we've just not got the finances. So that's obviously scary hearing that. So obviously we had the EGM, and people could vote whether to stay as a fan-owned structure or whether to then allow an investor to come in, because it wasn't with Rochdale. When it's been going on for a long time, and like last season as well, coming the back end of it, I remember on the podcast I was saying about, we need investment and stuff, wasn't Attia? And it wasn't the fact that nobody was interested, because we always had people interested, but it was the fact that they wanted to stay fan-owned. They were only allowing someone to come in and have so much of a percent of the club, which if you want to pump your own hard-earned money into a club, you want a bit more. You don't just want a certain percent, do you? So I do get that, and I do get from where like people who were potentially interested were coming from, because they wouldn't have like the final say, and they'd be putting the money into it, but they wouldn't kind of have a say really in things because they wouldn't be a majority holder. So I completely get that. We had the EGM, obviously went in the favour to do a change of the structure. And then obviously I think we had another investor. We had another couple of investors obviously interested. A couple of them were American ones, which everyone, as soon as you associate yourselves with Americans, you think, oh, they're going to be millionaires, you're going to have this, you're going to have that, because you automatically think of the Ryan Reynolds story, don't you?
Yeah.
Rob McElhenney at Wrexham. So we was like, oh, Tom Brady was also apparently interested in us as well. But then obviously out of the blue, we had this come to light about Lady Sir and Lady Ogden, and obviously that for me, and reading what they wanted to do, was just perfect, because they've obviously got links to the club. They want to keep it obviously kind of run like it is. And what stood out for me, to be fair, more than anything in their statement, was the fact that they want to stabilize it first and kind of get it to the point where we are like okay financially. They don't want to throw money at it and kind of go stupid. They just want to secure Rochdale. They want to secure our finances and just make sure we are running. So that to me automatically was a green flag. And I thought, you don't really get that with investors in this day and age. You just want to either pump money into it or kind of play, as we've said about it on the Premier League podcast, like sugar daddy football, isn't it?
Yeah,
you don't really get
football
someone
manager style. Yeah, exactly. Someone who gets the club, who's got that kind of local link, etc. Yeah, probably a perfect match, if anything, that you could kind of find for it.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously they've said they want to kind of carry on progressing youth team players as well, but they've also stated that our academy, because we didn't get promoted this season with National League, I think you only get funded the first year fully for your academies, and then I think it's just a certain percent the next year, and then it completely shuts your academy down, I think. So they've actually come out and said they've been looking at other options to try and still have these players and kind of keep them on to get the academy, because they still want to be further behind that. It's like they want to work with the community as well. And the thing what I'm so impressed with as well, because a lot of our fans have been like, Simon Gage is just out for money, he's just out for his own pocket, this and that, blah, blah, blah. He is actually wrote off the money. Him and Richard Knight have wrote off the money that we owe them and what they've put into the club. And it's kind of gone as equity now. So they have turned them into shares, which I think is fantastic, because they could have really left us in the deep end of that. But they're still part of the club, and their shares have obviously now been turned into equity. I think the new ownership as well, if it does go through, have basically turned around and said that Simon Gage will still have his job. Richard O'Donnell? Why have I said Richard O'Donnell?
he's welcome to come back, yeah.
Yeah, he can come back.
Get him on the board, yeah.
Why have I said him? Jim McNulty will obviously have his job as well. They don't want much change in that department. They just want to bring someone in from the commercial side to try and get funds, obviously, from that side, because you think we've got that function room in the club. We've got two free bars at the club, so you can bring functions into that. You can kind of get the commercial aspect about it to finance funds as well. So I do like the idea of bringing someone in, because we've not really had that recently, and I feel like we do need to get things running on the pitch and kind of get ourselves up, hopefully at some point back there and kind of challenging. But I don't think they want it to just run through the football side of it and like bringing in just the fans and things like that. I think they want to kind of bring more business into it and kind of have it running from all aspects. Because as I've mentioned previously before, we don't get the biggest crowds. We never have done. Unfortunately, like, we get people who obviously like me. My dad's brought me up as a Rochdale fan, and then Bobby is obviously watches Rochdale as well. So you get the older generation and bringing the generations through and through. But we don't really have that attraction or new fans coming all the time, because it sounds silly, but in this day and age now, a lot of people don't have the money, do they, anymore? And they'd rather just watch it on TV, because they've not got obviously the finances to go week in, week out, which obviously is fine. But then you've got the aspect of us being so local to other football teams: Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Wigan, Blackpool, Bolton, Bury, Oldham, so Stockport. So obviously they have a lot bigger crowds, so you're not going to pick Rochdale to come and watch. So it's just kind of now, hopefully, if it goes through, getting this fresh start, and it's looking positive. I will admit it is looking very, very positive. Hopefully it does go through, but I'm not taking it as it's gone through yet until the announcement, because something always seems to happen. But it is looking very positive. And I think a few weeks ago they put out a statement basically saying the procedures they've had to go through, obviously they have passed, but they've not really got anything else to say until it properly does go through. So it's looking good. It is looking good.
It's looking good. Hopefully the full positivity will come through with that confirmation soon over the summer. As I say, been a worrying, scary period, and investors and ownership and such. And it's just the way of football now, isn't it? There's so much of that is so important to the stability of a club. Obviously, as you said, wanting to run it as a business, driving it forward into different places, and so. The threat of, as we've seen to other clubs, people like, Bury, Macclesfield and such, who haven't been able to kind of sustain themselves. It's horrendous. So fingers crossed, we've all got our fingers crossed that it's all gonna go through. Everything will be lovely and happy daisies. But we've covered the ownership, so we will get back to the football quickly. To the end of the season, we reached the end of the season. If I just get my screens right here, we can bring it up. There we go. So at the end of the season, you're in the top half. You're in the capitals, as we like to say, on the lower league. I haven't filled those last three results, and I've just checked on there. So don't worry. I'm sure you can tell us what they were. I'll update them when the video goes out. So so good season in the end with that sort of top half finish, rescuing kind of from where it was. A number of draws in that kind of late period of the season, but it sort of became apparent relegation was stay well away from that, and then playoffs kind of wasn't a thing either. So it's just kind of performances. How did you feel about the end of the season?
To be fair, it was one of them where, in one respect, it was quite frustrating again, because obviously you like watching us, and you can tell we can win games. And I think it's, as we've mentioned before, and as I've mentioned on this before, I think it's the style of play what we're more frustrating people, because we're not really used to this build up and this kind of thing. And I just think, when we had Aaron McLean on the lower league show as well, he actually said, just trust the process. Just kind of go with it. It's going to be frustrating. But Jim McNulty is playing the right way of football and the modern way of football, which it's going to get to a point where all the teams are going to be playing this modern day football, because it's the way football's evolving. So we said, just stand by it, stick by it, because it's a right way. And it's Rochdale. He actually said Rochdale play the right style of football, the right way of football. So if he said it, I'm all behind it. It now. But he actually mentioned as well about Darren Ferguson at Peterborough, obviously since he's came back. And I think it was 3 or 4 different styles of play that he's tried with his Peterborough team. And then he started modernising it the way Jim McNulty plays as well, this possession-based football. And eventually they're getting it right now. It's took them a while, but they are getting it right. Obviously, we've seen them win. is it the Bristol Street Malters? What we were talking about before that cup?
The Oggy Oggy Pasty trophy.
Yeah, that's the one. And obviously we're doing well in League One now as well. So it's kind of a trust the process, as much as it's frustrating to watch, and it has been frustrating. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love being so positive, but there is times where I'm like, just shoot,
What's going on here?
just have a go, just shoot.
Someone dig one out.
Yeah, but it was quite a strange end to the season because we didn't really have nothing to play for, as you mentioned. We couldn't get relegated. Obviously, playoffs were out of sight now, as much as it was really, really lovely to possibly have that chance of getting in the playoffs. Not a chance were we ready for the playoffs. And if it ever came to the fact of us, I'm not saying it would have happened, but if we would have ended up finishing second and got promoted, we would have been nowhere near ready and we would have been worse off. So I think it was, even though the playoff push would have been really, really nice. And as a fan, it's always nice to have that. And obviously first season National League, it was just far too early for us. Far too early. I was happy with the position we finished as well, because I feel like we kind of found our feet and stabilised ourselves at National League. We kind of had a bit of an identity about us as well. We were winning games. We weren't just going out getting hammered every week, which we were obviously in League Two. So that's always
just
nice,
after the games, after the losses. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously new experiences as well, which was good. So yeah, it was quite a difficult one, the ending of the season, but it was one of them, like, even all of our fans will probably agree, even though there were times where it was really frustrating. And as I've mentioned as well, like, there was games where were just so boring because of this new style of play that Jim McNulty is trying to bring in. It was so positive in the aspect where it was just so nice to go, have that kind of like positive feeling back and be part of something positive again, because we haven't had that in previous seasons. And even though there was so much before, obviously, the Ogden family came in, there was so much going on behind the scenes. This has been the most likable bunch of players that we have had in such a long time, because they really have grafted and grafted. And despite us not having a very big squad, despite us obviously having a lot of young players as well, this is what people need to remember. We have got the experienced players like Ebanks Landell, Cameron John, Ian Henderson, Adam Clayton, obviously to a degree before we got injured as well. We have got that experience, but looking at the squad and the age, they're not old at all. They're very young players, yeah. And I just think if we can keep this core of players together, obviously for next season, we did this with so much going on behind the scenes. We did this with hardly any money. So if we can get a few more people in and bodies and more recruitment, I think we'll really like start to push on. But standout games on this, I can't really say any standout games as well on this one, apart from Southend, because that Southend game, and it was just typical Rochdale, where we couldn't get anything, like I've mentioned. We couldn't get relegated, we couldn't get playoffs. If Aldershot and I think was it Aldershot and Halifax, I think, if they lost but Southend won, Southend, despite everything they've gone through this season, which I think is fantastic what they have done there, like, hats off to Kevin Mayer, and I've said it time and time again, Paul Cook will probably win Manager of the Year because of what he's done at Chesterfield, but Kevin Mayer should 100% get it, because what he has done, considering what's gone on, is just phenomenal. They actually had a chance of playoffs if obviously those teams lost. Typical Rochdale, obviously we go and beat them. We played very well as well. Very well. And it was just perfect ending to a good season, because Cian Hayes obviously scores on his last game for us. And then Devante Rodney, injury time winner. Who doesn't love an injury time winner? But when it's Devante Rodney, after everything he's been through, it was just really good. So that's probably one of the standout games for me on there. The Oldham game, obviously, as I mentioned, were just completely different to the one. Obviously, at Crown Isle Arena, it was just a very boring, dull game. It just summed up what both of our teams were kind of going through at that moment in time. They were having a bad patch. Obviously, I think there's a bit of shenanigans going on there. I think Mickey Mellon and some of the players are kind of against each other, and it's not really going well there. So I think it just weren't the best game at all. Dorking, obviously, that was 1-1. Devante Rodney scoring again. No, I think a lot of these final games, Devante Rodney.
He did have a scoring
goals.
patch, didn't he?
Yeah.
He did have a scoring patch towards the end of the season. I definitely, I picked up, as you picked up a few more points to get you, to get you well up there. I mean, so did you disservice? You're 11th, not 12th. not 12th. Just shows you, and I was preparing this a few weeks ago. That's how much you've risen. You see, you've risen another place. Another place, flying up in 11th. So, and not a million miles away. Yeah. So only 9 points off of playoffs that you were. That's not, considering where some of the difficulties you had mid-season ownership and such. That's you say for giving you that platform to hopefully stabilise and then see what happens beyond it, isn't it? So that's the hope. So we've come to the end of looking at the results, but we've got a lot more still to come. We want to talk about the players. So tell us all about the players, Charles, what we've had. So we're going to run through kind of the squad and what their performances were. Obviously, so goalkeeper-wise, obviously Louis Molden you had, Tiernan Brooks coming in. Generally, where were you on the goalkeepers? I know you spoke briefly about it, but Molden was excellent for you in that first half of the season, wasn't he?
He was definitely my favourite, Louis Molden. To be fair, all three keepers, I think, at this level, have been very good for us and have done a really good job for us. Louis Molden, though, I think he's been my favourite. And I think if you asked a lot of Rochdale fans, then again, most Rochdale fans, I think they would actually say Louis Molden. I think just everything about him. He was very comfortable. He was very commanding. He could play football. You know what? Claire laughed at me of this when I said it on the Absolutely Lower League, but he could really play football with his feet. But it sounded silly, but do you know what I mean? Where he wasn't afraid to go for a run, being a goalkeeper.
Fabian Barthez, they used to call it, didn't they? But now every goalkeeper's doing it, isn't it? They're up on their halfway on dribbling past fullback, dribbling past wingers and all sorts.
It was very comfortable on the ball. I'll say it like that. It was very comfortable, and he weren't afraid to do that. Obviously, 5 assists as well for a goalkeeper. I think he's just absolutely phenomenal, as I mentioned previously. Just quality. Louis Molden I was so sad to see him go. So sad. Jim McNulty as well said in the fans forum that he got a phone call and he kind of got thrown in at the deep end and was like, he said, I don't usually swear, but I swore. He said, I was just absolutely gutted.
Gutted, yeah. That's disappointing. It's difficult, isn't it? As you say, lone players, particularly on those kind of short terms. And if they do well, then and their parent club's struggling, there's a likelihood they're going to be called back or there's another deal waiting in the wings, isn't there? So it's really difficult.
Yeah.
Really difficult.
I feel like with Molden as well, I think a lot of it and our struggles when we hit that bad patch was because people didn't realise what Louis Molden did for us. It weren't just the goalkeeper making all these saves. It was a key member of the build-up play and everything as well. So that was one thing we really did miss. And the defence, obviously, felt comfortable with Louis Molden and kind of were used to Louis Molden, and they kind of had that bond and that partnership. But obviously then it just changed so quick. Tiernan Brooks as well, as I mentioned before, I feel like he did get a lot of stick, but he had Louis Molden to live up to, and he was a massive fan favourite. So I think just that was obviously not going in his favour. I feel like with Tiernan as well, he didn't really play that much football before he came. And like I said, he got thrown in at the deep end. Obviously, then he went to international duty not that long ago, and that's when we brought Chapman in. And Chapman, for me, He's only a young keeper as well. And I feel like Chapman would be a very good keeper for us next season. If we were looking at a goalkeeper, I'd definitely get him on loan again if he were available. He was quite commanding. He was quite cocky in his playing as well, which I really liked about him because he wasn't afraid. He'd like go up and taunt their players and things like that, which I did kind of like. His match day routine as well, and before obviously kick off, he'll go and check the ball's okay and start bouncing the ball I think it's his kind of thing to do. So I liked that about him. But I feel like with Chapman, he was very good with his saves, and he kind of, even though fans did get frustrated with him because he did like to slow it down a bit and slow the game down, I would 100% take Chapman again. I thought he was a very good player from what I saw of him.
Yeah, I'm sure they would. I say a good end of the season for him too. Goalkeepers so important. And so you've had Molden and Chapman and Brooks doing the business for you all through the season. Moving into the defence now. So I mean, some of these players obviously played in different positions. So it's just trying to push them where they maybe played the most. Because I know sort of utility players down did around. Obviously got a few there on the screen. Gordon, John, and Cian Hayes. I mean, 7 goals I saw as well. Not a bad for the
first I'll start with Kyron Gordon because obviously he came in later for us. And as I've mentioned with Harvey Gilmore and Ryan East, where they've been kind of there and they've done very well, but not really had the credit because they weren't scoring the goals, I want to say a massive shout out to Kyron Gordon because I think he's been brilliant and he's been so reliable when we've needed him as well. He's played a lot of games, and because he's played them games for us, it triggered an extension to sign for obviously next season, and he's actually signed that as well. He looks like he's enjoying football with us, so I'm very, very happy with that signing. Still very young as well, as you mentioned. He's only 21. So you think he's kind of had that half a season with us and kind of done that. So if you think if we can keep these players together, what they can do next season and get that experience, I think is massive. But yeah, I'm a big Kyron Gordon fan. I really am. I think he's done really well. Cameron John, last season, Cameron John, he was one of the players that fans really did get on the back because they didn't really rate him. They felt like he wasn't really showing much effort, which I think is quite harsh because I feel like he really was. I just feel like everything he did were going wrong and he just weren't really performing. And when we signed him, there was a lot of Doncaster fans saying, oh, he's a really good player, such a good player, blah, blah, blah. So we've kind of lived up to that. And then obviously I keep saying last season, not last season, our last season in League Two. He kind of was one of them players that people weren't really sure of him. But this season, took it on the chin. He apparently has had a pay cut as well to stay at the club, which I think is very, very good, if that's true as well. And he really has done a job when he's needed to. And I really did change my opinion on Cameron John. I didn't dislike him as a person or anything. When I've met him and stuff, he's always come across as a very, very nice guy and very good with like the kids and stuff as well. He's always got time for pictures and stuff. But I felt a bit like, did we need him and would he do a job at National League considering what I saw of him from League Two the season before? I was a bit unsure of what he could do, but I'm very, very happy with what he's done, and I think he's been quite a consistent player. So I am massively changed my opinion on Cameron John. I have. Jimmy Cian is another one where some of our fans have been like, oh, what does Cian do? Now and again, he'll get a goal, but what does he actually do? But I feel like with Jimmy Cian, you can always rely on him. He's not the quickest by any means, don't get me wrong. I can see it from that aspect and the way we are trying to evolve and play this football. I can see it from that, but he's such a consistent player and you can always rely on him when he's obviously called on. And his goals this season
Just
as well.
12 goal
Yeah.
contributions between goals and assists. That's not to be sniffed at
He's
at
not
all.
played every game either. Like, he's been quite in and out as well, Jimmy Keohane, but he has been offered a new contract as well, Jimmy Keohane, so I would like him to sign it. And Cameron John's been offered a new contract as well. So I'd be quite happy if both of them signed it. I wouldn't be disappointed by any means.
No, both done well this season. And say other fullbacks you've got as well here coming onto screen.
Yes.
Anything about these three?
Adora, as I've mentioned, and I know a few Hartlepool fans because obviously he went on loan to then Hartlepool when his loan ended with us. They were on his back, but I feel like with Adora, we just needed better. He didn't do anything wrong as such, and you could always see that he was trying. He'd always try for us, and it was one of them where you could see that it was really like going for it and really trying his best, but he just didn't really make his stamp. But I don't know if that's because he's so young as well. And as I've mentioned, when Derby fans knew he was coming on loan for us, because obviously he's a Derby player, they were like, oh, you've got this player, and kind of building him up. And it seemed to be a little bit of a disappointment. But he's one of the nicest people that I've seen at the club in a very long time. Such a really nice lad, and for someone of that age as well to be so lovely and kind of had their head screwed on as well, I think is really good. It's such a shame that he just didn't kind of have that bit more about him. Max Conway, I really liked Max Conway, to be fair. I felt like he didn't really get the chance that he deserved, because every time he did come on, you could see if there was a player in him. And he looked quite an exciting player as well, which we'd not seen. But unfortunately, due to our financial circumstances, that's why he did get recalled back, because obviously we couldn't pay towards his wages, and Bolton wanted that, but AFC filed where he went on loan to the second half of the season. They paid towards his wages, so I think it was a no-brainer for Oldham. So even though it was very disappointing from a Rochdale point of view, because it did look quite good and exciting, I think those were the reasons, and you can kind of understand from Bolton's perspective, can't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Finley Armstrong, I liked Finley Armstrong anyway. It came from Fleetwood. Obviously, I think they tried to do us a deal where it was like, right, we've recalled Cian Hayes back, you can have Finley Armstrong.
But that's the one we really want. We want him back.
Yeah. But to be fair to Finley, when he came on for a young lad as well, he did do a job. Towards the latter end of the season, we didn't really see him much. I think that was because a lot of our players were obviously back through injury and stuff. But I felt like with Finley, when he did play, he really did do a job, especially for someone so young. So I did like Finley Armstrong, really did. And I think he'll be quite a good player, a very good player.
Definitely. Now, moving into the centre backs, I've managed to get all of these on one slide, of course. You've got including El Capitan, Banks Landell, and then never had a good season too. So what do you make of your centre backs this season, Char?
Well, Max Taylor, I don't know if you've seen as well. Recently, we did our retain and release list, and we've released Max Taylor. I feel like with Max Taylor, he has had a couple of seasons to kind of make a stamp on his time at Rochdale, but he's not kind of done that. In recent times, he's been very in and out of the squad as well. Sometimes he's not even been making the bench, unfortunately. And I just feel like with Max Taylor, it was just kind of mutual, where we let him move on and do his own thing now, and kind of let him go off, because he wasn't really progressing with us anymore. And it was quite disappointing as well, because I feel like when Max Taylor first came, he was a really, really good player. And even for a defender as well, he'd score the odd goal, he'd create the odd goal as well. And I just feel like in recent times, I don't know if it is because of the style of football we're now playing and it's kind of evolving, whether he just doesn't fit the system anymore. But I just feel like Max Taylor, it was the right time for him to move on. Bless him. I don't want to be mean. Don't want to be mean. Ebanks Landell obviously is our captain. Similar to Cameron John last season, there was a lot of people wondering, will he stay, will he go? We weren't that bothered whether he stayed, whether he goed. We had people saying, he's not the right captain for us, blah, 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 which sometimes you can kind of get on board with and agree with because he weren't doing post-match interviews and stuff. Then there was other people saying he weren't doing these post-match interviews and pre-match interviews because he's quite a shy and reserved person. Doesn't really like that. So I can kind of see it from both sides. I think the thing is with Dale fans as well, as a captain, is very different to what we've had previously. Our captains have always been quite vocal. Like we've had Gary Jones was one of our captains previously, who was with us for years. He was like a scouser, very vocal, very like used to scowl all the time, always had his say. We've had, like I said, we've had a lot of players who've been like quite vocal and stuff, and I feel like Ebanks really isn't like them. But this season, obviously, similar to what I said as Cameron John, I think he came out and said they were players to blame for the relegation last season. They didn't just want to up and go. They've kind of stayed and they want to help us get back to the level we're at. So hopefully he will sign the contract. There's a lot of, obviously, our fans who don't want him at the club or have a difference of opinion. But for me, I wouldn't be too disappointed if he did stay. I think, obviously, we want to keep that kind of core. There's been times where I felt like he has been at fault for some goals. Don't get me wrong. And you think, as a captain, you do need to do better, and like commanding your back line as well. You do need to do better and be more vocal. But obviously, I'm not on the pitch, so you can't really hear and see everything that's going on, can you? But Ebanks Landell, he's been offered a new contract. So, like I said, I wouldn't be disappointed at all if he obviously signed it. I'd be quite chuffed. Never, I think he plays very well at the back with George Never, and what a season he's had. I think Rochdale actually put a tweet out. I will try and get it up because I didn't realise this stat, but he started the season at 17, which is like, wow.
That's crazy,
Yeah. First team debut last May, age 17, so he's 18 now. Professional contract signed in July. First start on the opening day of the season. And I will say for that, and Jim McNulty came out in his interview and he said ex-players and like managers were texting him saying, whoa, you've made a bad move starting George Never on live TV at that age, first game of the season. And he said, I just smile and look at him now and think what a move that was, giving him his debut. So obviously there was that. He's made 35 Dale appearances this season, which obviously for a young lad in his first season, that's a very good game tally. He's had 2 caps for Wales under 19s, and then he's put what a 12 months for George Never. So that's all I can say. I mean, it's fantastic. He's obviously been linked to Premier League clubs as well. There was a rumour in January that he was going to go to Crystal Palace, but then unfortunately for him, he got injured. Fortunately for us, though, because even though it would have been money what we needed, I'm so glad we kept George Never, because what a player he is. He's just so cool and composed on the ball for his age. Like, you'd honestly think he'd be playing a game for absolute years. It's a bit like you've probably seen at United, Sam, with Mainu, where you think, you're not that age. You've been around before.
You suddenly see a young player, and it's when they can control everything around them. They've got that calmness. That is what, you expect erratic, you expect mistakes, you expect a little bit, sort of tearing around everywhere, don't you?
Yeah.
But when you suddenly see someone with that kind of calmness and you go, okay, there's a maturity that you wouldn't expect at that age to kind of come through, and you think, what have we got here? So I guess the hardest thing's going to be keeping hold of him, I guess.
I know. Yeah, it's going to be really hard, and obviously, like, there's a lot of clubs I feel will be interested in him, and I feel like he is ready for that next step. Even though he is so young, he is ready because he's just absolutely phenomenal. And I just want to say as well, like, as much as it's good saying things about him on the pitch, he is honestly such a lovely, down-to-earth lad. Like, we met him at the end of season awards, and he was like interacting with the kids, and he was so polite and well-mannered as well. And then the last home game of the season, bless him, he stayed behind at the end because there were so many kids like wanting his autograph and things like that and wanting his shirt. And he must have stayed for like half an hour after the game, just in the rain, signing all these things. He was hounded by all these Dale fans who were kids going, are you going to stay with us next season? Are you staying with us next season? And honestly, he had such a big smile on his face. And it's just so good to see someone that age, like, really enjoying it. And just, he's definitely been around in another lifetime because he's such a good footballer. But he's got his head screwed on massively. He will be like a role model. He's a type of role model you would want for your kids because he's just so lovely. And that's at 17-year-old as well. So I just wanted to say that about him. Dan Sassy, obviously, we got on loan from Blackpool. His first game, I was like, oh no, it looks a bit off the ball. He looks a bit like like he's just been thrown him at the deep end kind of thing, and he just didn't have the best game. But when he's played recently, he has really, really come on, to be fair to him. And I think it was just a case of he wasn't playing first team football at Blackpool. It was a bit rusty, yeah. And then he finally grew into it. And to be fair, I wouldn't be disappointed at all if we actually tried to get him on a permanent deal. Because I don't know if he's out of contract or not at Blackpool. I'm not too sure, but I wouldn't be too disappointed because I really did think that he grew into it the last few games in particular. Kyle Ferguson. I don't want to be harsh on him at all. When we signed him, I really did expect a really good player, and considering, like, obviously his dad's Barry Ferguson as well. So automatically you think, think our way up. I think one of his family members as well plays football in a different league, what I've read. So you're kind of expecting a player, and that's based on the family members, which you shouldn't do. But I feel like, to be fair with Kyle Ferguson, he has been so unlucky with injuries. Like, he has had bad injuries all through the season, and then he'll come back for a game, and then unfortunately he'll get injured again. So I can't really judge him on what he's done this season because I've not really seen too much of him to be able to judge him. So I'm just hoping, because he is in contract next season, that we do get to see a bit more of Kyle Ferguson. It's never nice to see a player injured, especially when it's a recurring injuries.
And recurring injury and sort of trying to break your way into a team is very difficult to contend with for any player. So we'll move up the pitch a little bit. As you said, sort of Easton Gilmore, your permanent two in terms of the midfield, managing it, and obviously the experienced general of Adam Clayton.
Yeah, so obviously I've spoke a lot about Easton Gilmore through the podcast, so I won't go too much into it with them. Adam Clayton, I feel like was the perfect player that we've been crying out for seasons and seasons. Just that dirty old school midfielder that can get the foot in, that can actually tackle as well. Don't get me wrong, he's got a foul in him, but this is the type of player that we needed. And them three at the start of the season were fantastic. They was like the core of our team. Nobody could get past them, and we have not had a midfield that strong in seasons and seasons and seasons. So this was just like music to my ears. But then, unfortunately, obviously, Adam Clayton did get injured, and I just feel like it just didn't get back into it, bless him, and he just didn't then have the chance. And obviously, he's an older one, he's one of the most experienced ones now. Unfortunately, as well, we have released him this season because I feel like he was on one of the top wages at the club, and we just couldn't take that risk, obviously, with him being quite injury prone. As much as he is a very good player, I just don't think we could have took that risk. And I don't know if Jim McNulty's, obviously, he probably has got someone else in mind. But I just wanted to say, even though it has been short, I loved Adam Clayton, we didn't see much of him back end of the season, but them three in that midfield was just one of the best midfields I've seen in years, like all three of them. And I'm just hoping, as I mentioned before, we can get kind of that defensive midfielder like Adam Clayton, which will allow Ryan East to be a bit more forward and attacking and more creative, because I feel like they were the games we were thriving when it was kind of them three in that position.
Yeah. Gives that freedom, doesn't it? Having someone that's
Yes.
got that experience. And so you feel for someone like Clayton, because I say as getting older, I think a more aging player with injuries, it's harder to come back. I mean, I can attest to that. Again, injuries can come back. Everything seems to take twice as long, and it's difficult. So as you say, at least you got kind of the season that you got out of him, and it, nothing else. It gives McNulty that idea of the profile of player, and says, okay, well, I can see having that profile of player, what it does for those around him. So. Definitely a big one. Now moving on to your wingers, and there's obviously the main man's in there as well. But what do you think is some of the other wingers got on for you this season?
Yes, so a Chegbalum, I didn't really know what to expect with a Chegbalum because he was coming in to the club. We didn't really know much about him. They were very disappointing people. They were very disappointing Chesterfield fans as well, saying like, I don't know why you've signed him. He's got nothing about him and stuff. But we thought we're not going to judge a book by its cover. We're not going to judge him now. We've not seen him play. So obviously we've seen a Chegbalum play, and he is one of the most frustrating players, bless him. And he is only young, and he's not really had that much game time since obviously the AFC Filed incident. So I'm not going to go in on him because I'm not like that. But it reminds me so much of the Abraham Adol situation where you can see glimpses, but then it's just disappointment after that. It's like, go on, just that bit more. You want to shake him and say, just give me that little bit more and you'll be a player. But it's just so frustrating. And I don't know, like I said, he is still in contract. I don't know if it is because obviously he is young and he just needs to get used to it and develop. Yeah. So I don't really want to go into him, but I just want to shake him. Just want to shake him and be like, come on, just give me that bit more.
Give me more.
Yeah. Mikey Foye, we have actually released him now as well. It was one of them with Mikey Foye where I think we took the risk on him. He was a very low standard of football. And then obviously we took the risk on him, Jim McNulty, but we've not really seen much of him play. I just think the step up the leagues were just a little bit too much for him. We did send him out on loan, and I think he had a pretty decent spell. I think it was at Guiseley, if I can remember. It's either Gateshead or Gateshead. It weren't Gateshead. Why did I say them? It was definitely Guiseley. Definitely Guiseley. I think he did all right there, but I think obviously now with kind of wanting to get certain players, we want to kind of put our stamp now on the league. We want to get playoffs next season and push for playoffs. I think Mikey Foye unfortunately wasn't good enough, and I think Jim McNulty felt like he could get someone maybe a little bit more experienced and better in his transfer window. So it was, I would have liked to have seen him play a little bit more, but I think it was the right decision considering what we want to try and achieve next season. Next player, I think I've said it. I just think I've said it.
He's brilliant and come back, I think, is the summary for Cian Hayes. Excellent season, come back.
Yeah, he's just absolutely brilliant. As I've said at the start of it, he's enjoying his football. It's nice as fans to see a player at that standard as well, and such an exciting player. He's scored goals, he's created goals, he's a team player as well. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else I can really say on him apart from what I said before. I won't go into it too much, but yeah, what a player, and I hope we can sign him next season. I really, really do. Everything's crossed. Everything is crossed.
Cross it all.
Sam Mather, I am so impressed with. Like, we we did this new thing, Rochdale, where obviously it weren't kind of, I don't know how to put it. It was kind of, it weren't a scholarship or anything, was it? It was kind of like a scheme. Was it a scheme?
It was some kind of sort of development-y scheme / something or other. Yeah, kind of dressed up as like a loan, wasn't it? But
Yeah. So when Sam Mather wasn't playing or training with Manchester United and obviously their academies, he was training with Rochdale Academy. It's a bit like work experience. That's what I think it kind of was, and getting the whole like experience of playing at National League and then hopefully an EFL standard. But with Sam Mather, I really, really did like him. I think he will go on to be a very, very, very good player at that age. He's obviously scored a couple of goals for us as well, which is very, very good considering the physicality as well in the National League. And that made me laugh in the fans forum when I rewatched it back, and Jim McNulty was asked a question on Sam Mather, and he basically said, he's not trained with us. They've not trained with us as of yet because it was when Manchester United were going through the massive injury crisis. So they were actually training with the first team with Manchester United. And then when we finally got him, it was like, what a bit of a reality check it was for Sam Mather, because you've had the likes of your Bruno and like all these players, Anthony and stuff, and then you've got Adam Clayton telling you to F off and do this.
Yeah, flying through you at training, studs halfway down your leg. Yeah, welcome to National League.
Yeah, so it was quite funny, but I think he would be such a player, and I would honestly like us, if we could, I'm not saying we can, but to carry on doing schemes like this, because it works out very well for actually the player who's coming they get experience and they get to kind of see and play at that level. But for us, who obviously we can't afford to kind of bring in like a big name, we've kind of getting these players, and it kind of works out as a really good deal. So I would honestly love Sam Mather back. I cannot speak highly about Sam Mather. I honestly really rated him. I just wish we had him longer and he played more games. And the back end of the season, it really came into his own, and he kind of like put a stamp on his position in the team. So yeah, I do really like Sam Mather. You've got a very good player there, Sam, for the future.
If they could play, yeah, we just need to use them. Manchester United special is a whole different question with how we use our youngsters. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talent, and so if you can get that scheme, particularly if you've got that with Manchester United and that academy, there's going to be players. You know, you've got someone like Sam Mather, you might get the next Kobe Mainu coming through and playing with you for a little bit, and you know, that would be something else. So not now, you can't have him now, but you can have Sam Mather back for a bit.
You can Mason Mount. Joking.
It's looking that way. We shall see. And then moving on, of course, to your super strikers. Lots of goals amongst them there. Lots of legends as well. We've got some cracking players in your striking lineup.
Yes, Tyree Sinclair I will start with. As I mentioned, the first half of the season before he got injured, he was really good. It was creating goals. Obviously, it was scoring goals. I think for a while, he was our top goal scorer as well, before obviously Cairo Mitchell started scoring. It was quite in and out the season before when we were in League Two. I don't know if he had trouble. Him and Jim Bentley had a fallout or something, but we actually sent him on loan to Altrincham. And then as soon as Jim Bentley got sacked, Jim McNulty called him back, and then Tyrese was actually scoring goals at the back end of the relegation season. So we automatically thought, if we can keep him, we've got a good player. We've got a player on our hands. Like, he's very good at the National League, kind of bottom end of League Two level at the minute. He's still young as well, so hopefully he can progress and get better. I feel like with Tyree Sinclair, though, after his injury, he just couldn't really get back then into the team. And he didn't really then, when we did see him, it didn't look the same player as what we saw the first end of the season. And it got linked in January with a move as well. So I don't know if something had happened. I'm not really sure about that. So we have released him as well, Tyree Sinclair. And it was one of them with him where I would have liked to keep Tyrese, because I feel like he did have that quality about him. It could get you goals. I think at that level, he is a very good player to have. But then at the same time, I feel like with Tyrese, if he doesn't want to be at Dale, then you can't really keep him at the club. Let him move on. And also it frees up a position for maybe like, because he's been playing on a wing as well recently, Tyrese. Frees up a position for maybe like a winger to come in, maybe Cian Hayes.
The stars are aligning.
Yeah. Also, as well, I'll quickly, before we go into Cairo Mitchell, because I'm talking about that kind of position, I'll talk about Damani Mella, because I think he's been released. So there's a lot of people, he's been released from his club because we only did have him on loan. We had him the season before in our relegation season, and I feel like he didn't really create much, and we didn't really have that much to go off from him. It was quite disappointing because we expected, because he was at Manchester United as well, you automatically think, oh, what a player we've got on our hands kind of thing. Didn't really cut it for us in the relegation season. When we got him again this season, there was a lot of people saying, oh, why have we got him? Why have we got him? I said on the podcast as well, like, if Jim McNulty sees something in him, Jim McNulty wants him, then I want him, just get behind him kind of thing. And this season at this level, unfortunately, he did get injured. But before that, he scored, which obviously is better than what he did last season. He looks a bit more into it. He's doing a bit more. He looks a bit more of a player as well. So obviously, he's done better this season. But then, unfortunately, he did get injured. But there is a lot of people saying because it has been released, maybe we could get him. So maybe that's why with Sinclair's gone, because we're lining up to sign Damani Mella. I don't really know, kind of thing. But yeah, I think he's done a lot better this season. It was just a shame, obviously, he got injured at that time, because I felt like he was doing quite well. Cairo Mitchell, obviously, I talk about him a lot, and I've spoke about him before, where I feel like there's a lot of fans who are quite disappointed with him, but they don't really kind of get it, because he scored 14, 15 goals. He's got assists as well. So that's a striker who's been injured for 2 months, who hasn't had his partner as well, because his partner has obviously not played due to obviously circumstances that you can't fault him for, because he's been poorly and obviously he's been injured. So that's one thing. He's had people in and out of the squad. Then you get Cian Hayes coming in. Cian Hayes then goes. Obviously, some of the people around him are getting injured. So I feel like it's been very inconsistent. But for his first season, for us, I think it's good scoring them goals. And I don't know why he gets criticised. Don't get me wrong. There's games where you see him have chances and you think, oh, we should have scored that. But he's still bagging him. He's still scoring him. So hopefully it can get better from that. But yeah, I like Cairo Mitchell, and I think he'll do a very good job next season for us as well. Obviously, he's in contract, one of the players that is, so I'm happy with that.
I think that's a good point, as you say. Sometimes if you've had in and out as well with wingers and different players, it's difficult as a striker because you're timing your runs because you know what your winger or your midfielder is going to do. So having all that change can't be that helpful. When you say then on top of that, you miss a chance. Confidence can be massive. It's difficult, and it's a good return. You know, it's a good return for him. So,
and this is coming from a fan base as well that was saying that he's got no end product. Like he could create, but he's got no end product. But he's obviously proved now this season, and it can only hopefully then kick on if obviously we get the players around him, and hopefully if Devante Rodney does commit to the club, who I will go on to next because he's out of contract, if he can commit as well, and if he's anything like how he's ended the season, I think him and Mitchell will really thrive off each other and have a really good relationship up front.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Devante Rodney, as I've mentioned, he has been in and out this season. Bless him. I love Devante Rodney. He's one of them players at the start of the season. before we kicked a ball, it was like, right, he's going to be our top scorer. He's going to be our top scorer this season. He's going to do really well. Build a team around Devante Rodney. Then obviously he was out with health issues, which is just so sad, just in general. But just a frustrating few months for him, not knowing what was going on, having tests and stuff. Very unfortunate. And then obviously it came back, was able to play some games, so it looked really promising. Then got injured, so it was like, right, what are we going to do? And it must have been so hard for him, just not knowing what was going on and kind of wanting to prove yourself at this point as well after last season, and wanting to really put a stamp and kind of make that position your own and stuff. So it must have been so frustrating, as much as obviously the worry of things going on off the pitch. But then obviously, as we've mentioned, the back end of the season, he has just been fantastic. Some of the goals he's been scoring as well. He's been scoring some really good goals, and we've missed that. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, because I would love Devante Rodney to sign for another year or two and really kind of push on, because I feel like, especially him and I've mentioned Cairo Mitchell, but him and Ian Henderson together, like they really do gel well and play well off each other in that teamwork and partnership. And yeah, that's one partnership I'd like to see definitely again next season. Yes.
Yeah.
Because we've not really, to be fair, we've not really seen much of it, because obviously we've not really seen much of Devante Rodney. And then when Devante Rodney's been playing, Ian Henderson's been on the bench. And obviously it's just been the last like 15, 20 minutes we've been seeing it. So I'd like to definitely see a lot more of that next season. And it was actually the goal at Southend, what Devante Rodney scored in injury time. It was a fantastic ball from Henderson straight to Devante Rodney. So yeah, what a partnership, what a duo. But Ian Henderson, how long have I got?
The goat.
He is honestly like, he's got to be my favourite ever Rochdale player. He's obviously broke history, record breaker at the club. I feel like if that didn't go on with David Bottomley, he would have never left Rochdale. It was just what went on with that situation. And obviously the fallout there, I feel like if that didn't happen, Ian Henderson would have been at Rochdale throughout. He is just fantastic. And being a Rochdale fan and having a player like of that stature, and we've kind of, it sounds mental because I was already older when he signed for us, but I feel like I've kind of grown up with him as well. And you've kind of really seen his journey, because I feel like he's had some difficulties in his life, and then obviously playing football, he's had some difficulties then playing football, he's had injuries as well. And then when he signed for us under Keefill, it kind of made Rochdale his own. And yeah, he's just, honestly, he is absolutely fantastic. I cannot speak any higher of Ian Henderson. What a player and what a guy as well. One of the most genuine, down-to-earth guys you will ever meet. Love him.
And he's had such a career as well. Say he got 20 years ago, he won the championship with Norwich. Like, you know, that's a crazy career, and how long he's been with yourselves. And again, double figures again in the goals this season. There's just no stopping him, short of not far off 400 games, I think, is he now for Dale? It's insane. It's
I honestly just want him to sign that contract, because he's 39
for
now.
life.
His squad number has always been number 40, even under Keefill, like many seasons ago. And I can just see us, like him scoring at a vital moment next season. He's going to be 40 in January as well next season, and having number 40 on his back, it's just got to happen. I'm sorry. Sign the contract, Endo. Sign the contract. We need you. But not just that as well. He's such a great player, but just having that influence off the pitch as well. And I've seen on social media, like on our YouTube channel, we do like these funny like things with the squad and stuff, where they'll say like the best mates or who's the worst dress and things like that. And all of them speak so highly of Ian Henderson and just that what he has on all of them youngsters. And
such as you said, with that young team, to have a Henderson is just you can't value that amongst a club. Yeah,
what
you
a
can't
player.
at all. What a player! What a legend! What a legend! So that takes us through our players and say this was kind of how you were lining up with your team. We said we've gone through all the players. We won't talk too much about. Obviously, some moving about. I just wanted to put that up because it's always a nice graphic just to have the players on there in sort of a formation in terms of who were playing. So it was a very good season for Rochdale for the first one in National League. I know some people were hoping for more, but overall, I think with the ownership of the season, it's not turned into a bad finish at all. So it's a very quick couple of bits because I know we've kept you for plenty of time this evening. We've had the whole evening with Charlotte talking about Rochdale, so we're all very lucky. But yeah, Jim McNulty, of course, Jim McNulty, as we shout on the podcast, the legend that is
Jimmy
podcast
McNulty.
favourite. We love Jimmy McNulty on the podcast. How's things been with you with Jim McNulty? How he sort of evolved in dealing with all those off-field issues and where you're at with the season from Jim McNulty's point of view?
I am very happy with Jim McNulty. I will hold my hands up. When we announced that Jim McNulty was going to be full-time manager, I thought we've just gone for the cheap option. Why have we done this? We need someone in National League who is proven at National League because it's just a whole different league altogether. We need someone who can stabilise us, blah, 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 blah. And then I actually watched his first interview as manager. And after I watched that interview, I instantly changed my mind. He was so honest and something we have not had at the club since probably Keith Hill. So honest about everything. Just told us exactly what he wants in his squad. And he basically said, I know in the past we have had players who've done this, and this, but I don't want that. I want people, they might not be the best players, but they will be good, like in the dressing room. We'll have no bad apples anymore. We'll get all of them out and we're just going to start again. I want people who want to play for the badge and who will give their all 100%. And this season, all that, despite what's been going on off the field, they have gave 100% and you cannot fault one player. He was someone, as I mentioned, I wasn't sure of at first. I loved Jim McNulty as a player. I did. He is a club legend, but I thought, is it a bit too soon as a manager? Mm-hmm. But then I sat back and thought about it and thought, he knows the club from top to bottom. He cares about Rochdale. He's not just coming in, getting a wage and doesn't care about the club or what's going on. He genuinely cares. In his interviews as well, he says, us Rochdale fans, so he's including himself in that. So automatically you're like, yeah, that's someone we need. As I've mentioned before, his style of play at the minute might be quite conflicting with fans because some fans want to see it and want to see us evolve as a club. Some other fans are like, what are you doing? But I feel like he's got the right idea. He just needs that bit more to push on, whether that be funds, whether it be like new players coming in and recruitment. He needs all of that. But his first season so far in the National League, I cannot fault him one bit. Cannot fault him one bit whatsoever. He is just, it's just done a job. It's really stabilised us, but not only has he stabilised us, he's brought fans together. We're enjoying watching Rochdale again because there were times, recent seasons where people just didn't want to go. We were all just so against each other. It was like players against fans, management against fans. And even though people are entitled to have their own opinions and people do have their own opinions, it is so much different and more positive. And it's really nice to see because it has been quite toxic, to be fair, the last few seasons. There's been a lot of stuff going on, and it's not helped with obviously the circumstances off the pitch. But I feel like there's been a lot of toxic and negativity. But this season has just been, it's like a fresh start. And that's why I'm really hoping this takeover pays off, because I feel like Jim McNulty deserves it. Like what he has done for the club so far, and I don't think any Rochdale fans will disagree with me on this, even if there's certain ones who don't think they see him like doing, like achieving anything with us going forward, which I completely disagree with. I will hold my hands up and say I disagree with that. Like, you're all entitled to your own opinions, but what he's done this season with a lack of resources, and it's his first season. Like, is managing
with
the
so
club.
much to manage off the pitch, with squad turnover, young squads, new league, pressures of the fans, ownership issues. It's a lot to manage.
Pep couldn't do it. Could it? Alex Ferguson couldn't do it at first. Klopp couldn't do it. No one can do it in their first season unless you're like someone at Real Madrid or something.
Yeah, when it's all set. It's all set up there, and all your Galacticos are sat there ready to go. Yeah,
exactly.
It's not the man's learning his trade, and at the same time, if you've got a style of football that you're hoping will evolve, and I think as Aaron McLean said, stick with it, see where it goes, and if you can get the ownership hopefully sorted, your players come back in, you can get some of these more back on loan, you can get one or two permanents as well around the squad you've got. Jim McNulty's got, it's got to be allowed to see that through, surely.
What I love as well and about Jim McNulty, and I've said it before on the Lower League show, and I think I said it last week, is, and I'm not just saying it because they're our rivals, but you've got the likes of Oldham, who have obviously had the financial backing. They've got an experienced manager in, and look at them and what they're going through now. And then you've got the likes of Jim McNulty. They're like, at the minute, Oldham, they're against each other. It's like they're all individuals. It's like fans against like players and management and things like that. And it is quite sad to see, to be fair, because obviously you don't want that happening at a club. But then you've got just across like the pond, you've got us, and it's like we've had no money, we've had possible liquidation, and our players are a team. And they're always a team, like despite, and Louis Molden said it in his interview as well, win, draw or lose, we're a team. There's no I's, there's no me, there's no this. And that's all been embedded and imprinted by Jim McNulty this season. And we've not had that for a very long time, because there has been seasons recently where we have just been a bunch of individuals, egos and stuff like that, and it's just so refreshing. And there might be times where the players have frustrated us, or the players haven't had that bit of experience to carry the game through, because or they've been that bit fatigued, but they've always gave 100%, and that's one thing you can't fault. And it's all been because of Jim McNulty. And I think our fans, despite them obviously wanting more, and I think the whole reason about it is because obviously we've had that little run where we could have possibly got playoffs, but we need to remember at the start of the season they were just hoping for us not to get relegated, and it's just fickle fans at the end of the day. And I know we all pay our money, we all work hard, we all deserve to watch like our team play good football. Like, don't get me wrong, but at least let him cook. Let him kind of do it. It's his first season doing it. We've finished just outside of playoffs, top half in a new league that we've never played in before, with a bunch of new players that we've never had before, a lot of them very young, and a lot of them, to be fair, coming in like January and things like that. So at least let him have a transfer window with hopefully a better budget. And the Ogdens have actually said as well that they're not going to throw money at it, but they're going to give us a decent budget that will hopefully let us get a playoff place minimum, like hopefully let us push on to the next level. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. So just give him a chance, because what he's done this season with everything going on, he deserves that.
There you go. Jim McNulty. Yes, Jim McNulty. Jim McNulty going forward. So next season, Charles, we'll finish with this. What are your expectations and hopes for next season? What do you think is realistic?
Well, to be fair, I think it's quite an open league. We've not got Chesterfield anymore, which is a bonus.
It's helpful.
Yeah, we've obviously seen teams this season kind of show us what they're made of. You've got your likes of Altrincham, and they made it to the playoffs. Unfortunately, before them, they got beat as well. So they'll hopefully they'll be wanting to push on. Barnet as well is one of them. Obviously, the teams who were getting relegated are Forest Green and Sutton, so they're not really ones that exactly stand out. Whereas you had your Chesterfields, your Wrexhams, your Notts Counties, your Stockports recently. I feel like it's a bit of an open league. I think Oldham, obviously, they're ones that people are saying to watch, but then there's people coming out saying that they're having difficulties off the pitch, maybe financially, just like because they've spent so much money this season. They need to get rid of still some of the players that are in contract as well. So Mickey Mellon can bring in his own players. Southend, I think, are massively ones to watch. If the takeover does go through, considering what Kevin Mayer and his team have done this season, it's so incredible. I think they are ones to watch. But I feel like with us, if we've got the recruitment and finances behind us, and if we can keep some of the core of this side that we've had this season, if we can maybe, if Devante Rodney obviously signs his contract, maybe build it around him. If we can get Cian Hayes as well, that'll be absolutely phenomenal. I would love him. But if we can get a lot of these players signing the contracts, but then recruiting the odd more player as well and kind of getting more squad depth in, if we've got the finances behind it, I think we'll do well. Considering we finished 11th this season, I think we should be kind of hoping for playoffs because I just feel like the teams around us, there's no real standout one that you think, yeah, they're winning the league and they're winning it by a mile, like we've had in previous seasons.
It looks competitive, doesn't it? You weren't a million miles away. 9 points in the end, as you said. A lot of teams that are around there, and I mean, you saw it this season. I mean, as well, the drop off. I mean, look at Boreham Wood. 12 months ago, they were fighting. They were almost in the playoff final, weren't they? And just completely capitulating on its head. So there's teams that are coming through and going down the other way as well. So fingers crossed that next season we'll be here in 12 months' time. Trophy parade and all the rest of it will be there. Excitement. Will be the excitement. But thank you, Shah, for spending so much time to go through all of Rochdale. So I'm becoming a Rochdale fan. You see, I look for the results every week as well.
Getting a shirt.
Get in, I need to say if there's a nice, I'll need to vote on this season's shirt and get a good shirt. Or the last season's home shirt on the deal. Actually, I wouldn't mind that. That's not a bad shirt at all. So thank you to Charlotte, of course. And so if people aren't following you, Charlotte, which I can't imagine now, particularly as we've got Rochdale on, and everybody must be following you. But just in case, where can people follow you to get more of you and your Rochdale views?
Yes, so I am CharxRafc. That is on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. My HerGameToo stuff as well, because I am Rochdale's HerGameToo ambassador. That is Rochdale HGT, or you can check out all the good work HerGameToo are doing at HerGameToo or hergametoo.co.uk. And obviously, you can find me on the Absolute Football podcast, hosting Absolutely Lower League, or making cameo appearances sometimes on the WSL one, if we're short on hosts, on the Premier League one. Or you can catch me watching Rochdale, hopefully next season do well.
We just turn up wherever, you know what I mean? I was almost on the lower league one last. I was producing the lower league one for the last couple of minutes last week. I thought I was going to be jumping on there for extra time. You never know where we might turn up from the Absolute Football podcast. So if I am up the Effing Ducks, I'm hoping to do a few more of these for the Absolute Football podcast over the summer with different clubs. So if you're interested in finding out what's happening, we'll see if we can get one or two more of the crew on as well to talk about their clubs and hopefully some guests as well. But those all important podcast socials, there we go. look at all those smiley, happy faces of our team. You can follow the Absolute Football Podcast on Twitter at Absolute Ball Pod, on YouTube and Twitch we're Absolute Football Podcast, on TikTok Absolute Football Pod, on Instagram Absolute Football Podcast underscore Threads. I don't know if we've done anything on Threads for ages, but we're there. Apparently we're there.
Maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Threads is still there, but we might be there. Who knows?
We signed Cian Hayes.
Yeah, we signed Cian Hayes. We'll post
Threads.
it on Threads. There we go. The Absolute Football Podcast as well on Facebook. Mondays is our Absolute Premier League show. On Wednesdays is the Absolutely WSL and Women's Championship show. And on Thursdays, Absolutely Lower League, all at 8:30 live, where you can catch the repeats as well on YouTube. Over the summer, we're still going to be keeping the content going. We've got plenty coming up. Season reviews. We're going to be doing special one-off shows, quizzes probably, just chit-chats about the football, transfers, Euros, all sorts of stuff going on. So we're not going anywhere. We're still going to be doing lots and lots and lots of stuff, to keep our summers going. But for now, thank you all for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. And we will hope to catch you on the next one. Goodbye. Take care.
Jimmy Manoli.
Jimmy Manoli.